What happens when a contract meant to protect two people becomes the one thing that destroys their control? Kai was never supposed to stay. A poor Enigma with nothing to his name. He signed a deal with one of the most powerful alphas just to survive. No emotions, no attachment, no complications. Just 1 year. And then he walks away. But Adrian doesn't do things halfway. And the moment Kai stepped into his world, everything started to change. Because this wasn't just a contract anymore. It was something neither of them could stop. And by the time they realized it, walking away was an option. Kai had always known that life would not be easy for someone like him, but he never imagined it would feel this suffocating. The rain that night didn't just fall. It crashed down heavy and relentless, soaking through everything he wore until clothes clung to his body like a second skin. His slippers made soft, dragging sounds against the wet pavement as he walked without direction, without purpose, without anything waiting for him at the end of the road. He stopped under a broken streetlight, the weak flicker barely lighting the small space around him. In his hand was an envelope, thin, slightly crumpled, and already damp from the rain. He stared at it for a long moment before letting out a quiet breath. He didn't need to open it again. He had read it earlier, standing in that office while the receptionist avoided his eyes and handed it to him with a forced smile. "We regret to inform you." The words had become too familiar, too easy to recognize even before he read them fully. Kai leaned his head back slightly, closed his eyes as the rain hit his face. Another rejection, another door closed, another reminder that being an Enigma meant being overlooked in a world that only cared about alphas and omegas. His phone buzzed suddenly, pulling him out of his thoughts. He didn't need to check to know who it was. Still, his hand moved slowly, almost reluctantly, as he pulled out his pocket. Landlord. His chest tightened. Final notice. The word sat there, cold and unforgiving. Pay by tomorrow or leave. Kai stared at the screen, his grip tightening slightly before he locked again. Tomorrow. That was all he had left. One day before everything collapsed completely. A soft, hollow laugh escaped him. Of course, he murmured under his breath. Why wouldn't it come to this? He had tried. He really had. Applications, interviews, odd jobs, anything he'd find. But it never lasted. The moment people realized what he was, something shifted. Their interest faded. Their tone changed. Their decision became clear. Enigma, not useful, not needed. Just there. Kai pushed himself away from the wall, about to start walking again when a voice cut through the rain. "Excuse me." It was calm, controlled, out of place. Kai turned, his brows knitting slightly. A man stood a few steps away, holding a black umbrella. He wasn't wet, not even slightly. His suit looked expensive, perfectly fitted, and his posture was straight in a way that made Kai immediately aware of the difference between them. "You're Kai Mensa," the man said. Kai hesitated before nodding. "Yes." The man reached into his coat and pulled out a card, extending it toward him without another word. "You've been selected for a private interview. Tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. Don't be late." Kai frowned, not taking it immediately. "Selected for what?" "You'll find out." There was no explanation, no details. Just that. Kai stared at him for a moment longer before finally taking the card. It felt smooth, thick, expensive, completely different from anything he was used to holding. The moment he stepped inside, the atmosphere shifted. The air was cool, controlled, expensive. Everything looked polished, perfect. "Name?" the receptionist asked without looking up. "Kai Mensa." Her fingers moved quickly across the keyboard, then paused. Slowly, she looked up at him, her eyes scanning him more carefully this time. "Top floor. Private elevator." Kai blinked slightly. Private? But before he could ask anything else, a guard was already gesturing for him to follow. The elevator was separate from the others, quiet and sleek. When the doors closed, the silence fell heavier. Kai swallowed slightly, watching his reflection in the mirrored walls. As the elevator moved, something in his chest tightened. When the doors opened, everything changed. The space was quiet. Too quiet. Kai stepped out slowly, his eyes scanning the room before settling on the man sitting behind a wide desk. Adrian Cole. Even from a distance, his presence was overwhelming. He sat with ease, like everything around him belonged to him. "Sit." Kai walked forward and sat down. Adrian didn't look up immediately. When he did, Kai felt it, that sharp, piercing gaze. "You're an Enigma." Kai nodded slightly. "Yes." "And you're in debt." Kai's jaw tightened. "Yes." Adrian leaned back. "Good." Kai frowned. "Good." A document slid across the desk. A contract. Kai stared at it, confusion settling in. "I don't understand." "You will," Adrian said calmly. "I need someone to marry me." Silence filled the room. Kai stared at him, certain he had misheard. What? Kai's voice came out quieter than he expected, like the word itself didn't fully believe what it was asking. Adrian didn't repeat himself. "I need someone to marry me," he said again, his tone calm, steady, like this was the most normal thing in the world. A contract marriage. 1 year. Kai stared at him, searching his face for any sign of humor, any hint that this was some kind of test or mistake. There was none. You're serious, Kai said slowly. Yes. Kai let out a short breath, shaking his head as he leaned back slightly in his chair. No, he said. No, this doesn't make sense. You don't even know me. I know enough, Adrian replied, that I'm broke. Kai asked, that you have nothing to lose, Adrian corrected. The words hit harder than Kai expected. For a moment, he didn't respond. Adrian watched him carefully, his gaze sharp, unreadable. You're an enigma, he continued. You don't fit into expectations. You won't react the way others do. That makes you suitable. Kai frowned. Suitable for what exactly? Playing house with a stranger? For fulfilling a role, Adrian said. Public appearances, events, a stable image. Kai let out a small laugh, though there was no humor in it. And you think I can just pretend to be your partner? You don't have to pretend, Adrian said. You just have to behave accordingly. Kai shook his head again, pushing a hand through his slightly damp hair. This is ridiculous. Adrian didn't react. That's it. That's it. Kai stared at him. Then, slowly, a small, almost disbelieving smile formed on his lips. That won't be a problem. Adrian's eyes held his for a moment longer than necessary. Good, he said. The room fell quiet again. Kai looked back down at the contract. The numbers were still there, still real, still enough to fix everything. His mother's hospital bills, the rent, food, a future. All the things he'd been struggling to hold together suddenly felt within reach. All he had to do was sign. His fingers tightened slightly around the pen Adrian had placed on the table. This wasn't normal. This wasn't safe. But neither was the life he was living now. And survival had never been about safety. It had always been about choices. And right now, he didn't really have one. Kai exhaled slowly. Then he signed. The moment the pen left the paper, something shifted. It wasn't visible. It wasn't loud. But it was there. A line crossed. A decision made. Adrian reached forward, taking the contract and glancing over it briefly before setting it aside. It's done, he said. Kai sat there for a second, staring at his own signature like it belonged to someone else. What happens now, he asked. Adrian stood. You move in today. Kai blinked. Today? Yes. Kai let out a breath, running a hand over his face. Of course, he muttered. Adrian picked up his coat. A car is waiting. Kai stood slowly, still trying to process everything. This was happening too fast, too easily. And yet he followed. The car was exactly what he expected. Black, silent, expensive. Kai sat inside, his hands resting on his lap, as he stared out the window, watching the city pass by. Everything felt distant, unreal. You'll be briefed on expectations once we arrive, Adrian said from beside him. Kai didn't look at him. And if I change my mind? You won't, Adrian replied calmly. Kai glanced at him. You sound very sure. I am. Kai looked away again. We'll see. The mansion was bigger than anything Kai had ever imagined. The gates alone were intimidating, opening slowly as the car approached. Inside, the driveway stretched wide, lined with perfectly trimmed greenery and lights that made everything look almost too perfect. Kai stepped out of the car slowly, his eyes taking everything in. This is unnecessary, he murmured. It's standard, Adrian replied. Kai let out a quiet breath. Of course it is. They walked inside. The doors opened instantly, and the moment Kai stepped in, he felt again that strange shift like he had crossed into a space that didn't belong to him. Welcome back, sir. Kai flinched slightly. The staff stood neatly, their attention directed at Adrian and now at him. Don't call me that. Kai muttered under his breath. They will, Adrian said calmly. You'll get used to it. Kai didn't respond. He just followed. Everything inside was polished, quiet, controlled, too perfect. This is your room, Adrian said, opening a door. Kai stepped inside and froze. It was bigger than his entire apartment. The bed alone looked like it could fit 3 people comfortably. The windows stretched wide, letting in soft light. Everything was arranged perfectly. Kai let out a slow breath. This is just my room? Yes. Kai turned slightly. You're serious. Adrian didn't respond. Kai walked further in, his fingers brushing lightly against the edge of a table. It didn't feel real. Nothing about this felt real. Your belongings will be moved here, Adrian continued. You'll be given a schedule. Staff will assist you. Kai leaned against the edge of the bed slightly. This is insane. Adrian stepped closer. You agreed to it. Kai looked at him. I agreed because I had no choice. A pause. Adrian's gaze didn't soften, but something in it shifted slightly. You have one now, he said. Kai frowned. Do I? Adrian didn't answer. Instead, he turned. Rest. You'll need it. And then he left. Kai stood there alone. The silence in the room felt different from before. Not empty. Just unfamiliar. He sat down slowly on the edge of the bed, staring ahead. What did I just do? He murmured, but there was no answer. Only the quiet, and the reality that his life had just changed in a way he couldn't take back. Days passed, then weeks. Kai adjusted. Not completely, but enough. He learned how to dress properly, the staff guiding him without being overbearing. He learned how to speak in public settings, how to stand beside Adrian without looking like he didn't belong. But inside, he still fell out of place. "You're stiff," Adrian said one evening. Kai glanced at him. "I'm trying not to mess up." "You won't. You sound very confident." "I am." Kai let out a small breath. "You're strange." Adrian didn't react. "Focus," he said instead. Kai did. But something was changing. Slowly, subtly, and neither of them said anything about it. Kai didn't realize when things started shifting. It wasn't sudden. It wasn't obvious. It was in the small moments. The quiet ones. The ones no one would notice unless they were paying attention. At first, everything felt like an act. Every smile, every step, every glance. He memorized the way Adrian walked into a room, confident, controlled, like everything belonged to him. Kai learned to match his pace, to stand just slightly behind, but close enough to be seen as part of him. He learned where to place his hands, how to hold eye contact during conversations, when to speak and when to remain silent. It was exhausting, but it worked. To everyone else, they looked perfect. A powerful alpha and his calm, composed partner. Balanced, untouchable, but behind closed doors. It was different. Stop overthinking. Kai blinked, pulled out his thoughts. He turned his head slightly to look at Adrian, who stood beside him in the mirror, adjusting his cufflinks. "I'm not overthinking," Kai replied. "You are," Adrian said calmly. Kai frowned. "How would you even know?" Adrian's eyes met his due to reflection. "Because you do it every time before an event." Kai paused, then let out a quiet breath. "Maybe." Adrian finished adjusting his sleeve, then stepped closer. Too close. Kai felt it immediately. The shift in the air, the weight of Adrian's presence behind him. "Relax," Adrian said, his voice lower now. Kai swallowed slightly. "I am relaxed." "You're not." Kai didn't respond. He couldn't, because Adrian was right, and because standing this close felt different. Adrian's hand lifted. For a second, Kai thought he was going to touch him, but instead, Adrian reached past him, adjusting the collar of Kai's shirt slightly. The movement was simple, small, but it made Kai's breath hitch. "There," Adrian murmured. "Better." Kai stared at his reflection, his heartbeat just a little too fast. "Thanks." Adrian didn't step back immediately. For a moment, they just stood there, close, quiet. Then Adrian moved away like nothing had happened. "Let's go." Kai followed, but something stayed with him. That small moment, that closeness, that feeling, and he didn't know what to do with it. The event was exactly what Kai expected. Expensive, bright, full of people who looked like they had never struggled a day in their lives. Kai stood beside Adrian, his posture steady, his expression calm. On the outside, he looked like he belonged. On the inside, he felt like he was watching someone else live his life. "Adrian." A voice called out. Kai turned slightly. Another alpha approached, his presence strong, his expression sharp. "Didn't expect to see you here," the man said. Adrian's expression remained neutral. Business requires presence. The man's gaze shifted and landed on Kai. There was a brief pause, then a slight smirk. "So this is the one." Kai felt it instantly. That look, that judgment, that curiosity. He had seen it before, many times. "What about him?" Adrian asked calmly. The man tilted his head slightly. "He's an enigma, isn't he?" Silence. Kai didn't react, didn't move, didn't speak. But inside, something tightened. "Yes," Adrian said. The answer was simple, direct. The man let out a soft laugh. "You've always been unpredictable, Adrian. First you reject every omega offered to you, and now this?" His gaze lingered on Kai again. "Interesting choice." Kai held his ground, even though every instinct told him to step back, to disappear. But before he could say anything, Adrian moved. Just slightly, but enough. He stepped closer to Kai. Not obvious, but clear, protective, deliberate. "My choices don't require your approval," Adrian said calmly. The man's smirk didn't fade. "Of course not." But his eyes said enough. Then he turned and walked away. Kai exhaled slowly, only realizing then that he'd been holding his breath. "That was unnecessary," he muttered. Adrian glanced at him. "What was that?" Kai said. "You didn't have to do that." Adrian's expression didn't change. "Yes, I did." Kai frowned slightly. "Why?" A pause. Then, "Because you're with me." Kai blinked. Something about that answer felt different, not just professional, not just part of the act. But he didn't say anything. He just nodded slightly. "Right." But the feeling stayed, and it didn't leave. That night, Kai couldn't sleep. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything in his mind. The way Adrian had stood closer, the way he had answered without hesitation, the way it had felt wrong, confusing, too real. "This is just a contract," Kai whispered to himself. But the words didn't feel as solid as they used to, and that scared him, because if the line between real and fake started to blur, then everything would become dangerous, very dangerous. The next few days were quiet, too quiet. Adrian was busy. Meetings, calls, work, and Kai. Kai found himself alone more often than before. At first, he thought he would enjoy it, the silence, the space. But instead, it felt empty, and he didn't understand why. One evening, he sat by the window again, staring out at the city lights, lost in thought. You're doing it again. Kai didn't turn. Doing what? Thinking too much. Kai let out a quiet breath. Maybe I like thinking. Adrian stepped closer. Not when it makes you restless. Kai finally turned slightly. And how would you know I'm restless? Adrian didn't answer immediately. He just looked at him. And somehow that was enough. Kai looked away first. You're strange. Adrian's voice softened slightly. You've said that before. And I meant it both times. A brief silence. Then, why didn't you choose an Omega? Kai asked suddenly. Adrian's expression didn't change. Because I didn't want one. That's not an answer. It is. Kai frowned. No, it's not. That's like saying you didn't eat because you didn't want to eat. Adrian's lips twitched slightly. The smallest hint of something close to amusement. I don't want complications, he said finally. Kai tilted his head slightly. And Omegas are complications? They come with expectations, Adrian replied. Emotions. Attachment. Kai went quiet. And you think I won't? Adrian's gaze held his. You said it yourself. Kai blinked. What? That falling in love wouldn't be a problem. Kai felt something tighten in his chest. Oh. Silence. Then, right. He turned back to the window. But something about the conversation lingered. Something uncomfortable. Something real. Because for the first time, Kai wasn't completely sure of his own answer. And that scared him more than anything. Kai didn't notice when the silence in the house started to feel heavier. At first, it was just quiet. Then it became something else. Lonely. He sat by the window again, knees drawn slightly up, staring at the city lights like they could answer something he didn't understand yet. The glass reflected his face faintly, and for a moment, he barely recognized himself. He looked different, not just because of the clothes or the place or the life he had been pushed into, but because something inside him was shifting, and he didn't know how to stop it. You're doing it again. Kai didn't turn. Thinking? Yes. Kai let out a small breath. Maybe I don't have anything else to do. There was a pause. Then you could sleep? Kai gave a quiet, almost tired laugh. If it was that easy, I would. Adrian stepped closer. Kai could feel before he even saw him. The presence, the weight, the way the air seemed to change slightly. Why aren't you sleeping? Adrian asked. Kai hesitated, then shrugged slightly. Just not tired. It was a lie, and they both knew it. Adrian didn't call him out on it. Instead, have you eaten? Kai blinked. The question caught him off guard. Yeah. Another lie. Adrian didn't respond immediately. Kai finally turned slightly and froze. Adrian was looking at him, not the usual way. Not cold, not distant. Just looking, like he was trying to understand something. Come with me, Adrian said. Kai frowned slightly. Where? Kitchen. Kai blinked again. You have staff for that? Yes. Then why? Come. Kai stared at him for a second longer, then slowly stood. He didn't know why he was following, but he did. The kitchen was quiet, empty, too clean. Kai leaned slightly against the counter, watching as Adrian moved without hesitation, opening cabinets, pulling out things like he had done it before. You cook? Kai asked. Sometimes. That's surprising. Why? Kai shrugged. You don't look like the type. Adrian didn't respond to that. Instead, he focused on what he was doing. Simple, nothing fancy, but careful. Kai watched him, the way his movements were controlled, but not stiff, the way he didn't rush, the way this version of him felt. Different. Sit, Adrian said. Kai hesitated, then sat. Minutes passed. Quiet, but not uncomfortable. When Adrian finally placed the plate in front of him, Kai stared at it. You made this? Yes. Kai looked up at him. Why? Adrian's answer came without hesitation. Because you didn't eat. Kai's chest tightened slightly. I said I did. You didn't. Kai looked down at the food again. He didn't argue, because there was no point. Adrian had already seen through him. You didn't have to do this. Kai said quietly. Adrian didn't sit. He just stood there. You're under my responsibility. Kai frowned slightly. That's not the same thing. Adrian's gaze shifted. For a moment, something softer passed through it. It is now. Kai felt that. He didn't know why, but he did. He picked up the fork slowly, took a bite. It was simple, but warm, and for some reason, that made it harder to swallow. Is it bad? Adrian asked. Kai shook his head slightly. No, it's fine. A pause. It's good. Adrian didn't say anything, but he stayed. He didn't leave, and that was new. Kai ate quietly, aware of Adrian's presence, aware of the silence, aware of the fact that something about this moment didn't feel like a contract anymore. Why do you care? Kai asked suddenly. The question slipped out before he could stop it. Adrian didn't answer immediately. Kai looked up. Their eyes met. And for the first time, Adrian didn't look like he had a prepared answer. I don't know, he said finally. Kai's breath caught slightly. That wasn't what he expected. I thought you didn't do emotions. Kai said quietly. I don't. Then this is what? Adrian didn't respond, and that silence said more than words. Kai looked away first. You're confusing. Adrian's voice was softer now. You've said that before. And I meant it. A pause. Then, finish your food, Adrian said. Kai let out a small breath. Yes, sir. Adrian's eyes narrowed slightly. Don't call me that. Kai blinked. You're the one who told him to call me, sir. That's different. Kai couldn't help it. A small smile formed on his lips. You're really strange. Adrian didn't argue, but for a brief second, the corner of his lips moved. Barely. And Kai noticed, and that moment, that small, quiet moment, stayed with him longer than anything else. Because that was the first time Adrian didn't feel like just an alpha. He felt human, and that made everything more dangerous. Because caring, even a little, was where everything started to fall apart. Kai told himself it was nothing. Just food. Just a moment. Just something small that didn't mean anything. But the problem was, it didn't feel small. It stayed. The way Adrian had looked at him. The way he had noticed. The way he had cared. Kai lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, his mind replaying everything again and again like it refused to let him rest. This is just a contract, he whispered. But the words didn't settle the way they used to. They felt weaker now, less convincing, and that made something uncomfortable curl in his chest. The next morning came too quickly. Kai got dressed in silence, his movements slower than usual, like part of him didn't want to face Adrian again, because something had changed, and he didn't know how to act around it. When he stepped into the dining area, Adrian was already there. Of course he was. Perfectly dressed. Calm. Composed. Like nothing had happened. Like last night hadn't existed. Kai paused for a second at the entrance, then walked in. Good morning, Adrian said without looking up. Morning. Kai sat down. The table was already set. Food neatly arranged. Warm. Fresh. Kai's eyes flicked to it briefly. Then away. You should eat, Adrian said. Kai frowned slightly. I will. But he didn't move immediately. Adrian noticed. Of course he did. You're hesitating. Kai sighed quietly. I'm not used to this. To what? Kai gestured vaguely. This. Everything. It's too much. Adrian finally looked up. And what would be less? Kai went quiet. He didn't have an answer. Because the truth was, less meant going back. And going back meant losing everything. Never mind, he muttered. Adrian watched him for a moment longer. Then, eat. Kai rolled his eyes slightly. You're bossy. And you're stubborn. Kai let out a small breath, then picked up the fork. This time, he didn't lie. He actually ate. And Adrian noticed that too. He always noticed. That was the problem. Days passed, but the distance between them didn't return to what it used to be. Instead, it changed. Not fully close. Not fully distant. Something in between. Something unstable. Kai started noticing things he hadn't before, like how Adrian would glance at him during conversations with others. Just for a second. Like checking if he was still there. Like how he would subtly guide him through crowded spaces, his hand hovering close, but never quite touching. Like how he remembered small things. Too small to be necessary. Too deliberate to ignore. And it started getting to Kai. Because the more he noticed, the harder it became to pretend it meant nothing. You're distracted again. Kai blinked, pulled out his thoughts. They were at another event. Bright lights. Too many people. Too many eyes. I'm fine, Kai said. You're not. Kai exhaled slowly. Can you stop doing that? Doing what? Reading me like that. Adrian's gaze didn't shift. I'm not reading you. You are. A pause. Then, you're just easy to read. Kai frowned. I'm not. You are, Adrian repeated. Kai looked away, irritation mixing with something else he didn't want to name. Maybe I just don't hide things as well as you do. That made Adrian pause. Only slightly. But Kai saw it. What is that supposed to mean? Adrian asked. Kai turned to him. It means I don't know what you're thinking half the time. Adrian's expression remained calm. That's not necessary for this arrangement. Kai let out a short laugh. Right. The contract. There was something sharp in his voice now. Something different. And Adrian heard it. You agreed to it. I know, Kai said quickly. You don't have to remind me. Then don't act like you regret it. Kai's chest tightened. I don't. But the hesitation, it was there. Adrian saw it. Before the conversation could go further, someone approached. Another alpha. Tall. Confident. Smiling too easily. Adrian, he greeted. Then his gaze shifted to Kai. And you must be the partner everyone's talking about. Kai straightened slightly. That depends on what they're saying. The man chuckled. I like him already. Kai didn't respond, but he didn't step back either. And you are? Kai asked. Daniel. His eyes lingered just a little too long. Kai noticed. So did Adrian. And what do you do, Kai? Daniel asked. Kai hesitated for a fraction of a second. Then, whatever I need to. Daniel's smile widened slightly. Interesting answer. The conversation continued. Light. Casual. But something about it felt off. Kai could feel Adrian's presence beside him, still, quiet, watching. And then Daniel stepped slightly closer, not inappropriate, but closer than necessary. "You're different," he said. Kai tilted his head slightly. "So I've been told." "I mean it," Daniel added. "You don't act like someone who just stepped into this world." Kai's lips curved faintly. "Maybe I'm just pretending well." Daniel leaned in just a little more. "Or maybe you're more than that." That was the moment, the shift, the line, and Adrian crossed it, without warning. His hand closed around Kai's wrist. Firm, not rough, but enough to pull him slightly back. Close. Too close. Kai's breath caught. "Excuse us," Adrian said calmly. But there was something under it. Something sharp. Something possessive. Daniel's smile didn't fade, but his eyes changed. "Of course." Kai didn't speak as Adrian led him away. Didn't pull his wrist back. Didn't say anything until they were alone. Then, "What was that?" Kai asked, pulling his hand free. Adrian didn't answer immediately. "What did it look like?" "It looked like you didn't like him talking to me." Adrian's jaw tightened slightly. "I didn't." Kai blinked. "Why?" A pause. A long one. Then, because he was getting too close. Kai stared at him. "That's not part of the contract." Adrian's eyes darkened slightly. "I know." Silence. Heavy. Then Kai stepped closer. Slow. Careful. "Then what is it?" Adrian didn't move. Didn't step back. Didn't answer. But his gaze didn't leave Kai's. And that said everything. Kai's heart started beating faster. Too fast. "This isn't good," he whispered. Adrian's voice dropped. "No, but you're not stopping it." "Neither are you." Kai swallowed. That was true, and that scared him more than anything, because for the first time, walking away didn't feel easy anymore, and staying felt even more dangerous. Kai moved away, then stepped back, not because he wanted to, but because if he didn't, he wasn't sure what would happen next. "Right," he muttered. "The contract." Adrian didn't respond. That silence again. That heavy, uncomfortable silence. Kai turned first, walked away, and Adrian let him, but neither of them felt okay about it. The rest of the night felt wrong. Forced. Kai smiled when he needed to, nodded when expected, stayed close enough to Adrian to maintain appearances, but inside, everything felt off, because now he knew this wasn't just acting anymore, and that made every glance feel dangerous, every small touch feel too real. By the time they got back to the mansion, the tension hadn't faded. If anything, it had settled deeper. Kai stepped out of the car without waiting, walking ahead slightly, like putting distance between them would somehow fix what had just happened. It didn't. He reached his room, opened the door, stepped inside, and just stood there, breathing, thinking, tried to make sense of something that didn't want to be explained. "You're avoiding me." Kai froze. He hadn't heard Adrian follow him. He turned slowly. "I'm not." "You are." Kai exhaled sharply. "Okay, fine. Maybe I am." Adrian stepped into the room, closing the door behind him. "Why?" Kai let out a quiet laugh. "Do you really need to ask that?" "Yes." Kai stared at him, then shook his head. "You grabbed me like I was yours." The words came out before he could soften them. Adrian didn't deny it. That's what it looked like. Kai's chest tightened. That's what it felt like. Silence. Then, "It wasn't part of the contract," Kai added. Adrian's voice was lower now. "I know." Kai stepped closer. Not far. Just enough. "Then what was it?" Adrian didn't answer immediately, and for the first time, he looked like he didn't have control over the situation. "I didn't like the way he was looking at you," he said finally. Kai's breath caught slightly. "That's not a reason." "It is to me." Kai swallowed. That sounded like jealousy. Another pause. This one longer. Heavier. Then, "Maybe it is." The words landed between them. Real. Unavoidable. Kai's heart started beating faster again. "You said you didn't do emotions." "I don't." "Then what is this?" Adrian took a step forward. Now they were close again. Too close. "I don't know." Kai let out a soft breath. That's not reassuring. "It's honest." Kai held his gaze. And that honesty, it made everything worse. Because now there was nothing to hide behind. No excuses. No pretending. Just truth. Raw and uncertain. "We should stop this," Kai said quietly. Adrian didn't move. "You can," he replied. Kai blinked. "What?" "You can stop it," Adrian said. "Walk away. Keep it strictly professional." Kai stared at him. "And you?" Adrian didn't answer. And that silence, it said enough. Kai looked away first. "You're not making this easy." "I never said I would." Kai let out a small breath, then turned back. Their eyes met again, and something in the air shifted. Again, stronger this time, more dangerous. "I'm trying to," Kai whispered, "but you're not." Kai swallowed. His heart was beating too fast now. "This is a mistake." "Probably." "Then why does it feel like you don't care?" Adrian's voice dropped even lower. "I care." Kai's breath caught. And that was it. The last piece. The thing that broke whatever control they had left. Because caring was the one thing that wasn't supposed to happen. And now it had. Fully, completely, irreversibly. Kai didn't think anymore. Didn't overthink. Didn't stop himself. He stepped closer. Closed the distance. And for a moment, they just stood there, breathing the same air, feeling the same tension. Then, Adrian moved first. Slow, careful, like he was still giving Kai a chance to pull away. But Kai didn't. And when their lips finally met, it wasn't rushed. It wasn't desperate. It was slow. Testing. Like they were both trying to understand what this meant. What it changed. What it broke. Kai's fingers tightened slightly against Adrian's shirt. Adrian's hand moved aside, steady, grounding. And for that moment, everything else disappeared. The contract, the rules, the distance. None of it mattered, because this was real, and that was exactly what made it dangerous. When they pulled back, the silence felt different. Heavier, deeper. Kai's breath was uneven. We really shouldn't have done that. Adrian didn't deny it. No. Kai let out a soft laugh, almost breathless. But we did. Yes. Another pause. Then Kai stepped back slightly. Not far, but enough to think again, to feel again, to realize again. This changes everything, he said quietly. Adrian's gaze stayed on him. I know. And for the first time, neither of them knew what came next. Kai stood there for a long moment after they pulled apart, his chest rising and falling unevenly, his mind trying to catch up with what had just happened. The room felt different now. Smaller somehow, heavier, like the air itself had thickened around them. We really shouldn't have done that, he said again, quieter this time, like repeating it might undo it. Adrian didn't look away. No, that simple agreement should have made it easier. It didn't. Kai let out a slow breath, dragging a hand through his hair as he turned slightly, putting just enough space between to think, but not enough to feel safe, because there was no going back to before. Not after that. You said you didn't do emotions, Kai muttered. I don't. Kai let out a short laugh. That doesn't look like not doing emotions. Adrian's jaw tightened slightly. I didn't plan for this. Kai turned back to him, his eyes searching. And I did. Silence. That silence again. But now it felt different. Not empty. Not controlled. Just uncertain. Kai shook his head slightly. This is exactly why this kind of thing doesn't work, he said. You bring two people together, tell them not to feel anything, and somehow expect it to stay that way. Adrian's gaze didn't shift. You're the one who said it wouldn't be a problem. Kai flinched slightly. Yeah, he said quietly. I was wrong. That landed. Adrian didn't respond immediately, and for once, he didn't have a quick answer ready. Kai noticed. So what now? Kai asked. Adrian's voice was steady, but lower than before. We continue. Kai frowned. Continue like nothing happened? No. Then what? Kai pressed. Adrian stepped closer again. Not as close as before, but enough. We adjust. Kai blinked. Adjust? Yes. Kai stared at him. That's not an answer. It's the only one we have. Kai let out a breath. This isn't a business deal, Adrian. Adrian's expression hardened slightly. It still is. Kai shook his head immediately. No, it's not. Not anymore. Silence. Then, you're right, Adrian said. Kai paused. That wasn't what he expected. I am. Yes. Another pause. Then Adrian continued. Quieter this time. But that doesn't mean it stops. Kai's chest tightened. Why not? Adrian held his gaze. Because I don't want it to. There it was. Clear. Simple. Honest. Kai swallowed. That's not how this was supposed to go. I know. Then why are you saying like it's okay? Because I've already decided it is. Kai stared at him, something twisting painfully in his chest. You don't get to decide that alone. Adrian's eyes didn't waver. Then tell me to stop. Kai opened his mouth, then closed it again, because he couldn't. That was the problem. He couldn't say it, couldn't mean it, and Adrian saw that. That's what I thought, Adrian said quietly. Kai looked away quickly. This is a mess. Yes, and you're not even trying to fix it. No. Kai let out a breath that almost sounded like a laugh. You're unbelievable. Adrian didn't respond. He just stood there, waiting. And that waiting, it made everything worse. Because it wasn't pressure. It wasn't force. It was choice. Kai's choice. And he hated that. Because it meant whatever happened next was on him too. We need rules, Kai said suddenly. Adrian's brows shifted slightly. Rules? Yes. Kai stepped back again, putting more space between them this time, forcing himself to think clearly. If we're going to continue this, whatever this is, then we need something to keep it from getting out of control. Adrian watched him carefully. Go on. Kai took a breath. No public mistakes. No slipping up at events. We don't let anyone suspect anything beyond what they already think. Adrian nodded slightly. Agreed. Kai continued. And we don't let this affect the contract. Adrian's gaze sharpened. It already has. I mean further, Kai corrected quickly. No emotional decisions. No complications. There was a pause. Then, that might be difficult, Adrian said. Kai frowned. Why? Adrian's voice dropped slightly. Because you're already a complication. Kai blinked. Wow. Adrian didn't look apologetic. Kai shook his head slightly, but there was no real anger behind it. I'm serious. So am I? Kai hesitated, then added, and one more thing. Adrian waited. If this starts getting too much, we stop. Adrian's eyes held his. And who decides that? Kai hesitated. Both of us. Adrian considered that, then nodded once. Fine. The agreement settled between them. Fragile, unstable, but real. Kai exhaled slowly. Okay. Silence filled the room again. But this time, it wasn't as suffocating. Still heavy, still uncertain, but manageable. For now. Kai turned slightly. I'm tired. Adrian nodded, then rest. Kai walked toward the bed, then paused. Adrian. Adrian looked at him. Kai hesitated. Then, that wasn't just nothing, right? The question came out quieter than he intended, more vulnerable. Adrian didn't answer immediately. When he did, no. Kai's chest tightened slightly. Okay. He didn't say anything else. Just lay down, turning away slightly. Not because he wanted to distance himself, but because he needed a moment to breathe, to think, to feel. And Adrian didn't leave immediately. He stayed for a moment longer, watching, then finally turned and walked out, closing the door softly behind him. That night, sleep didn't come easily, for either of them, because things had changed, irreversibly. And even though neither of them said out loud, they both knew this was no longer just a contract, and whatever came next wouldn't be simple. The next morning didn't feel like a fresh start. It felt like a continuation of something unfinished. Kai woke up before his alarm, staring at the ceiling, the memory of last night still sitting heavy in his chest. The kiss, the conversation, the silence after. Nothing about it felt distant. If anything, it felt closer. Too close. He turned slightly, pressing his face into the pillow for a moment, letting out a slow breath. This is getting complicated, he muttered. But there was no undoing it. No going back. When he finally got up and got dressed, his movements were slower, more deliberate, like he was trying to hold himself together before stepping out of the room. Because he knew, the moment he saw Adrian again, everything would feel real again, and he wasn't ready for that. Still, he stepped out. The house was quiet, as usual, but the quiet felt different now. Not peaceful, just aware. Kai walked into the dining area and stopped. Adrian was already there. Of course, he always was. Sitting calmly, reading something on his tablet, completely composed, like nothing had changed. Kai hesitated at the entrance, then walked in. Morning, he said. Adrian looked up. Their eyes met, and just like that, everything from last night rushed back. Morning, Adrian replied. A pause, a small one, but enough. Kai sat down, keeping his movements controlled, his expression neutral. The food was already there, warm, perfectly arranged. Kai stared at it for a second, then picked up the fork. You slept? Adrian asked. Kai shrugged slightly. Eventually, Adrian studied him for a moment. You're lying. Kai sighed quietly. A little. Why? Kai let out a short breath. You really have to ask? Adrian didn't respond immediately, because he already knew. Right? Kai added. Silence settled again. But it wasn't the same silence as before. It was heavier now, full of things neither of them were saying. We should talk about it, Kai said suddenly. Adrian's gaze lifted slightly. About last night? Yes. A pause. Then Adrian set his tablet down. Go on. Kai took a breath. We agreed on rules. Yes. And this. Kai gestured slightly between them. This doesn't follow those rules. Adrian's voice remained calm. It doesn't. Kai frowned slightly. And you're okay with that? Yes. Kai blinked. Just like that. Yes. Kai stared at him. Something frustrated and confused rising in his chest. You're not even trying to pretend this is under control. It isn't, Adrian said. The honesty hit again. Harder this time. Kai leaned back slightly. You're really serious about this? Yes. Kai ran a hand through his hair. This is going to mess everything up. Not if we manage it. Kai let out a small laugh. You say that like it's easy. It isn't, Adrian replied. Then why are you so calm? Adrian's eyes held his. Because I've already decided I'm not stepping back. Kai's breath caught slightly. You don't even hesitate, do you? No. Kai looked away. That's dangerous. I know. Silence. Then, and me? Kai asked quietly. Adrian didn't answer immediately. When he did, that's your decision. Kai's chest tightened. Of course it was. Always his choice. And he hated that. Because it meant whatever he felt, whatever he chose, he couldn't blame Adrian for it. You're putting this on me, Kai said. I'm not forcing you, Adrian replied. That's worse. A pause. Then Adrian leaned back slightly. Then tell me to stop. Kai froze. Again, that same question. That same impossible answer. Because he couldn't. Not honestly. And Adrian saw that. Then we continue, Adrian said quietly. Kai exhaled slowly. This is a bad idea. Yes. And we're still doing it. Yes. Kai shook his head slightly. We're really doing this. Adrian didn't respond. He didn't need to, because they both knew the answer already. The rest of the day passed differently. Not awkward, not distant, but aware. Every glance lasted a second longer. Every small movement felt intentional. Every moment between them carried weight. Kai noticed everything. Too much. And it was starting to get to him. By the evening, he needed air, needed space, needed something that wasn't Adrian. I'm going out, Kai said. Adrian looked up. Where? Just out. A pause. Then, I'll have a car take you. Kai shook his head. I'll walk. Adrian's expression shifted slightly. It's not safe. Kai frowned. I've been walking my whole life. That was before. Kai stared at him. Before what? Before you were mine. Adrian didn't say it, but the silence said enough. Kai felt it, and that made his chest tighten. I'll be fine, Kai said. Adrian didn't argue, but he didn't look convinced either. Take your phone. Kai blinked. I always do. Keep it on. Kai let out a small breath. Yes, sir. Adrian's eyes narrowed slightly. Don't call me that. For a moment, he just stood there, letting the cool air hit his face. Then his phone buzzed. Kai blinked, pulling it out. Adrian. He stared at the name for a second longer than necessary, then answered. Yeah. Where are you? Kai frowned slightly. Out. I know that, Adrian replied. Where? Kai let out a small breath. Just walking. A pause. Then, send me your location. Kai blinked. What? Send it. Kai leaned back slightly against the wall, looking up at the dark sky. You're serious? Yes. Kai let out a quiet laugh. You don't trust me to walk alone? Another pause. Then Adrian's voice came, lower now. It's not about trust. It's not about trust. Kai heard those words again in his head as he stood by the window, long after Adrian had left the room. Back then, it had sounded controlling. Now, it felt like something else entirely. Something quieter. Something that stayed. Kai let out a slow breath, resting his forehead lightly against the glass. It's about knowing you're safe. He closed his eyes briefly. That was the problem. Adrian didn't say things lightly. When he said something, he meant it. And that made everything harder, because it meant the care wasn't fake. It wasn't part of the contract. It was real. Kai pushed himself away from the window, pacing slowly across the room, his thoughts refusing to settle. This wasn't supposed to happen, he murmured. But it had. And now, he didn't know how to handle it. A soft knock interrupted him. Kai froze for a second. Come in. The door opened. Adrian stepped in, as always calm, composed. But his eyes, they went straight to Kai. Checking. Always checking. You're still awake, Adrian said. Kai let out a quiet breath. You're one to talk. Adrian stepped further inside, closing the door behind him. I had work. Kai tilted his head slightly. And now? A pause. Then, I'm here. Simple. Direct. Kai's chest tightened slightly. You don't have to be. I know. Kai watched him for a moment. But you're anyway. Yes. That honesty again. It never got easier. Kai looked away first, rubbing the back of his neck slightly. You really don't know how to keep things simple, do you? No. Kai huffed out a small breath. Figures. Silence settled between them, but it didn't feel empty. It felt like something waiting. Kai broke it first. Earlier, he said, his voice quieter now, when you said it's not about trust. Adrian didn't interrupt. Kai continued. I didn't get it then. A pause. I do now. Adrian's gaze didn't shift. Do you? Kai nodded slightly. Yeah. He looked back at him. It's not about whether I can take care of myself. Adrian remained still. It's about you want to make sure I don't have to. Silence. Then, yes, Adrian said. That one word settled heavily in the room. Kai swallowed slightly. That's a lot. I know. Kai let out a small, almost breathless laugh. You always know. Yes. Kai shook his head slightly. You're unfair. Adrian's brows shifted just a little. Why? Kai met his gaze again. Because you don't hesitate. A pause. You don't second guess. You don't pull back. His voice softened slightly. You just stay. Adrian didn't deny it. I do. Kai's chest tightened. And you don't think that makes this harder for me? It probably does. Kai let out a breath. You're not even trying to make it easier. No. Kai almost smiled at that. You're unbelievable. And you're still here. That hit again. Kai looked away briefly, then back. Yeah, he said quietly. I am. Another pause. Then Kai stepped forward. Not rushed, not unsure. Just deliberate. You said this isn't just a contract anymore. Adrian nodded once. It isn't. Kai stopped just a step away from him. Then what are we doing? Adrian's voice lowered slightly. We're figuring it out. Kai tilted his head. That sounds uncertain. It is. Kai studied him. You don't like uncertainty. No. Then why are you okay with this? Adrian didn't answer immediately. When he did, because it's you, Kai's breath caught. That wasn't something he could brush off. You say things like that so easily, Kai said quietly. Adrian's gaze held his. They're not easy. Kai swallowed. Then why say them? Because they're true. Silence. Heavy. Real. Kai looked down for a second, then back up. You're really not going to stop, are you? No. Kai let out a slow breath. Even if this gets messy? Yes. Even if it goes wrong? Yes. Kai's heart was beating faster again. Even if I mess it up? Adrian didn't hesitate. You won't. Kai shook his head slightly. You don't know that. I do. How? Adrian stepped closer. Not enough to overwhelm, but enough to close the distance. Because you're still here. Kai's breath caught. That's your reason? Yes. Kai let out a quiet laugh. That's not logical. I'm not being logical. Kai stared at him. You really changed. A pause. For me? Adrian didn't deny it. Yes. That word again. Simple, but heavy. Kai felt it settle in his chest. Deep. That's dangerous, he whispered. Adrian's voice softened slightly. I know. Kai didn't move. Neither did Adrian. They just stood there, close, quiet, and for once, there was no tension pulling them apart. Just something steady, something growing. Kai spoke again, softer this time. If this keeps going. He hesitated. I won't be able to treat it like a contract anymore. Adrian's answer came without hesitation. You already don't. Kai exhaled slowly. Yeah. A pause. Then, and you? Kai asked. Adrian's gaze didn't shift. I stopped a while ago. Kai's chest tightened. When? Adrian didn't look away. When you started matching. Silence. Kai didn't speak. Couldn't. Because that was the truth he had been avoiding. And now it was right in front of him. Clear. Unavoidable. Adrian, he said quietly. Yes. Kai swallowed. You're making it really hard not to stay. Adrian's lips curved faintly. I'm not trying to stop you. Kai shook his head slightly. I noticed. A small silence followed. Then Kai stepped closer again, closing the distance completely this time. Not hesitant, not unsure, just choosing. Then don't, Kai said softly. Adrian's gaze darkened slightly. Don't what? Kai held his eyes. Don't stop me either. That was it. The moment, the shift. And Adrian didn't pull back, didn't hesitate, didn't question it. He stayed, just like he always did. And this time, Kai did too. Kai didn't step back. That was the first thing that felt different. Before, every time things got too close, too real, he would be the one to create distance, to remind himself, to breathe, to think. But this time he stayed, and Adrian noticed. Of course he did. You're not pulling away, Adrian said quietly. Kai's lips curved just slightly. I'm trying something new. Adrian's gaze didn't shift. And what is that? Kai held his eyes. Not running. That landed deeper than anything else. Adrian's expression didn't change much, but something in his eyes softened. Not weak, not uncertain. Just open in a way Kai hadn't seen before. That's a dangerous choice, Adrian said. Kai let out a quiet breath. So is staying. Yet you're doing both. Kai tilted his head slightly. So are you? A small silence settled between them. But it wasn't tense. It wasn't awkward. It was steady. Real. Kai glanced down briefly, then back up again, like he was gathering something inside himself. I keep thinking about what you said, he admitted. Adrian didn't interrupt. Kai continued. That it's not about trust. A pause. That is about knowing I'm safe. His voice softened slightly. No one's ever said that to me before. Adrian's jaw shifted just a little. They should have. Kai gave a faint shake of his head. They didn't. Another pause. Then Kai added. So I don't really know what to do with it. Adrian stepped closer. Not suddenly. Not forcefully. Just enough. You don't have to do anything with it. Kai frowned slightly. What does that mean? It means you don't have to understand it right away. Kai looked at him. And you're okay with that? Yes. Kai let out a breath that almost sounded like a laugh. You're patient now, too? With you, yes. Kai blinked. Just me? Yes. That made his chest tighten again, in a way that wasn't uncomfortable. Just unfamiliar. Kai looked away briefly, then back. You really don't make this easy. I'm not trying to. Kai shook his head slightly, but there was no real frustration in it. I can see that. Silence fell again, but this time it felt quieter, calmer, like something had settled between them. Not perfectly, but enough. Kai spoke again, slower now. When I first signed that contract, he trailed off. Adrian waited. Kai let out a small breath. I thought it was just survival. Adrian didn't respond. I thought I'd just get through it. Take the money, fix everything, and leave. A pause. I didn't think I'd stay this long. Adrian's voice came, low and steady. You still can leave. Kai shook his head almost immediately. That's the thing. He looked at him again. I don't want to. The words came out softly. But clearly, Adrian didn't look surprised. If anything, he looked like he had been waiting for it. Then don't, Adrian said. Simple, direct. But this time, it meant something more. Kai stepped closer again, not thinking too much now. Just following what felt right. You always say things like it's easy. It isn't. Then why make it sound like it is? Because I don't want you to hesitate. Kai's breath caught slightly. You don't want to think? I don't want you to overthink. Kai let out a quiet breath. Too late for that. Adrian's lips curved faintly. Then stop now. Kai huffed softly. You say that like I can just turn it off. You can. Kai raised a brow slightly. Really? Adrian's gaze held his. Yes. Kai tilted his head. How? Adrian didn't answer with words. Instead, he stepped closer, closing the distance completely. Kai's breath slowed slightly. That's your method? He murmured. Yes. Kai let out a quiet laugh. Not very subtle. I'm not trying to be. Kai shook his head slightly. Of course you're not. But he didn't move away. Didn't create distance. Didn't stop it. Because at this point, he didn't want to. Adrian's voice dropped slightly. You're still thinking. Kai exhaled. Little. Stop. Kai looked at him. I'm trying. Then don't try. Kai blinked. That makes no sense. Adrian's gaze didn't shift. It does. A pause. Then just stay. Kai went quiet. That word again. Stay. Simple, but heavy. He looked at Adrian for a long moment. Then, okay, he said softly. And this time, there was no hesitation behind it. No doubt. No second guessing. Just choice. Adrian's hand lifted slightly. Not grabbing. Not forcing. Just resting lightly against Kai's side. Steady. Grounding. Kai didn't react immediately, but he didn't pull away either. He just stood there, letting it happen, letting himself feel it. This still feels unreal, Kai admitted. It's not. Kai looked at him. It feels like it. It won't forever. Kai tilted his head slightly. You sound sure. I am. Kai let out a small breath. You're always sure. With this, yes. Kai's chest tightened slightly again. With me? Yes. That was the part he wasn't used to. Being chosen. Not out of need. Not out of obligation. But because someone wanted him. And Adrian wasn't someone who said things lightly. Which meant this mattered. Kai swallowed slightly. You're really not going anywhere, are you? No. Kai nodded slowly. Good. The word slipped out before he could stop it. But he didn't take it back. Adrian didn't react strongly. But something in his expression shifted. Subtle. But real. Kai noticed. What? He asked. Nothing. Kai narrowed his eyes slightly. That didn't look like nothing. Adrian shook his head faintly. It's just. You said good. Kai blinked. And that means you want me to stay too. Kai paused. Then, yeah, he said quietly. I do. And just like that, everything settled. Not perfectly. Not completely. But enough. Because now it wasn't one-sided. It wasn't uncertain. It was mutual. Chosen. Real. And for the first time, neither of them questioned it. They just stayed. The house felt different that night. Not because anything had changed physically. The walls were still the same polished marble. The light still soft and carefully placed. The silence still controlled. But something in the air had shifted. Something subtle. Something quiet. Something that made every space feel more alive. Kai noticed it as he walked down the hallway. His footsteps echoed softly, but not as loudly as they used to. Or maybe it just didn't feel as empty anymore. He paused near the wide glass panels that overlooked the city. The night stretched endlessly outside, lights scattered across the skyline like distant stars. Cars moving slowly below, everything far away and yet somehow close enough to touch. It's quieter tonight, Kai said. Adrian, standing a few steps behind him, didn't answer immediately. It's always quiet, he said after a moment. Kai shook his head slightly. No, not like this. A pause. This is different. Adrian stepped closer, not enough to crowd him, just enough to stand beside him. What's different? He asked. Kai rested his hand lightly against the glass, feeling the cool surface under his fingertips. It doesn't feel empty anymore. Silence followed that. Not uncomfortable. Just still. Adrian's gaze shifted from the city to Kai. That's because you're not alone in it anymore, he said. Kai's breath slowed slightly. You say things like that too easily. They're not easy, Adrian replied. Kai glanced at him briefly. But you still say them. Yes. Another pause. The city lights flickered faintly outside, reflecting softly against the glass and across Kai's face. For a moment, neither of them spoke. They didn't need to. The space between them wasn't heavy anymore. It wasn't uncertain. It was calm. Kai leaned slightly against the window, his shoulder brushing just barely against Adrian's arm. Not intentional. Not accidental either. Adrian didn't move away. He stayed exactly where he was. The warmth of his presence steady. Grounding. This place used to feel too big, Kai admitted quietly. Adrian looked at him. And now... Kai exhaled slowly. Now it just feels quiet. A pause. In a good way. Adrian's voice softened slightly. Good. Kai let out a small breath, his eyes drifting back to city. You really changed this place. Adrian frowned faintly. I didn't. Kai shook his head. You did. A small silence settled again. Then Kai added, or maybe I did. Adrian didn't respond, but his gaze lingered, because he understood what Kai meant. It wasn't a house. It was a feeling inside it. The presence. The connection. The fact that now, there was someone else in the silence. Kai shifted slightly, turning just enough to face Adrian. Does it ever feel strange to you? He asked. What? Kai hesitated. This. He gestured lightly between them. This. Us. Adrian didn't answer immediately. For once, he seemed to think about it. No, he said finally. Kai blinked. Not at all. No. Kai tilted his head slightly. Why? Adrian's gaze didn't waver. Because it feels right. That answer came too easily. Too naturally. Kai felt it settle somewhere deep in his chest. You're really certain about that? Yes. Kai looked down briefly. Then back up. I'm still getting there. Adrian nodded once. I know. Kai let out a small breath. You always know. Yes. Kai smiled faintly. That's still unsettling. You'll get used to it. Kai shook his head slightly. I'm not sure I want to. A pause. Why not? Adrian asked. Kai looked at him, his expression softer now. Because if I get used to it. He hesitated. Then I might not want to leave at all. Silence. Heavy. Real. Adrian didn't look away. Then don't, he said. Simple. Just like before. Kai let out a quiet breath. You really don't give me any space to doubt things, do you? No. Kai laughed softly. I noticed. The air felt warmer now. Not physically. Just in the way the space between them existed. Kai leaned back slightly against the glass again, but this time he didn't feel like he was standing alone. Adrian remained beside him. Close. Steady. Present. The city lights continued to flicker outside, but neither of them paid much attention anymore, because the focus had shifted from the world outside to the quiet space they shared inside. This is dangerous, Kai murmured. Adrian didn't deny it. I know. Kai turned his head slightly, their shoulders brushing again. And you're still staying? Yes. Kai nodded slowly. Me too. And that was a difference now. Not hesitation, not confusion, just choice. The environment around them stayed still. Soft light, quiet air, distant city noise. But inside that moment, everything felt grounded, real, and for the first time, the silence didn't feel like something to fill. It felt like something to keep. The quiet didn't break. It deepened. Kai stayed by the glass a little longer, watching the slow movement of the city below. But his attention wasn't really there anymore. It had shifted, softly, naturally, back to the space beside him, to Adrian. You're still thinking, Adrian said. Kai let out a small breath. Just a little. Adrian didn't tell him to stop this time. He just stayed where he was. That alone felt different. Kai turned slightly, his shoulder brushing Adrian's again, but this time he didn't move away at all. Do you ever get tired of this? Kai asked quietly. Of what? Kai gestured faintly around them. The silence, the routine, everything being controlled. Adrian considered that for a moment. No. Kai frowned slightly. Not even a little? No. Kai tilted his head. Why? Adrian's gaze shifted to him. Because it's predictable. Kai huffed softly. That sounds boring. It is, Adrian said calmly. Kai blinked. And you're okay with that? Yes. Kai studied him. Until now. A pause. Adrian didn't deny it. Until now. Kai's lips curved faintly. So I ruined your perfect, predictable life. Adrian's expression didn't change much, but there was something softer in it. You changed it. Kai's chest tightened slightly. That sounds like a nicer way of saying the same thing. It's not the same. Kai looked at him. No. No. Another pause. Then Adrian added, It's better. That made Kai go quiet, because Adrian didn't say things like that casually, and he didn't say them without meaning. Kai looked away briefly, his fingers tapping lightly against the glass. You really don't hold back, do you? No. Kai let out a small breath. I'm still trying to catch up. You don't have to. Kai glanced back at him. Easy for you to say. Adrian didn't argue. Instead, he stepped slightly closer. Not sudden, not overwhelming. Just enough. You're here, Adrian said. That's enough. Kai's breath slowed. For you? Yes. Kai shook his head slightly. I don't even know what I'm doing half the time. Adrian's voice softened just a little. Then don't think about it. Kai raised a brow. You keep saying that like it's simple. It is. Kai let out a quiet laugh. It's not. A pause. Then, but I'm trying. Adrian nodded once. I know. Kai exhaled slowly, his body relaxing just a little. The tension that used to sit between them. It wasn't gone, but it wasn't sharp anymore. It had softened into something steady. Something they could stand in without feeling like they needed to escape. Stay with me, Kai said suddenly. The words slipped out before he could stop them. He froze for a second, then looked at Adrian. I mean, I will. Adrian didn't let him take it back. Kai blinked. You didn't even let me explain. You don't need to, Kai stared at him. You're really like this all the time? Yes. Kai shook his head, but there was no resistance in it. That's dangerous. I know. Kai let out a breath. And you still don't stop. No. Silence settled again, but it wasn't empty. It was warm. Kai pushed himself gently away from the glass, turning fully this time. The distance between them disappeared, without effort. I didn't expect this, Kai admitted. Adrian's gaze held his. Neither did I. Kai searched his face. But you're not surprised. I am. Kai frowned slightly. You don't look surprised. I don't show it. Kai huffed softly. Of course you don't. A small pause. Then Kai's voice dropped. I thought I'd leave after everything was settled. Adrian didn't interrupt. I thought this would just be temporary. Kai looked at him. But now, he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Adrian understood. You're still here, Adrian said. Kai nodded slightly. Yeah. A pause. I am. Another moment passed. Then Kai stepped just a little closer. Not rushing. Not hesitating. Just choosing. This still scares me, he admitted. Adrian's voice was steady. It should. Kai blinked. That's not comforting. It's honest. Kai let out a quiet breath. You really don't do comfort, do you? Adrian looked at him. I do. Kai tilted his head. Where? Adrian didn't answer with words. Instead, his hand lifted slightly, resting gently at Kai's side. Warm. Steady. Grounding. Kai still for a second, then didn't move away. Oh, he murmured softly. Adrian's gaze softened just a fraction. Here. Kai's chest tightened again, but not in a bad way. Just full. That's new, Kai said quietly. Yes. Kai swallowed slightly. I think I like it. Adrian didn't respond, but he didn't move his hand either. And that said enough. The room stayed quiet. The city lights dimmed slightly as the night deepened. And for once, neither of them felt the need to say anything more. Because the silence wasn't something to fill anymore. It was something to stay in. Together. Kai didn't move. That was the difference now. Before, every quiet moment made him restless. Every silence pushed him to think, to question, to pull back before things got too real. But now he stayed. Adrian's hand was still resting at his side. Steady and warm. Not demanding, not forcing, just there. And somehow, that made it harder to leave than anything else. You're doing that thing again, Kai said softly. What thing? Kai glanced at him, staying too close. Adrian didn't step back. You didn't tell me to move. Kai let out a quiet breath. I didn't say I wanted you to. A small pause followed that. Not tense. Just aware. Adrian's gaze held his. Then I won't. Kai swallowed slightly. You really don't miss anything, do you? No. Kai huffed a faint laugh. Figures. The room had grown dimmer, the soft lighting casting shadows along the walls, making everything feel calmer, slower. Outside, the city was still alive, but in here, everything had quieted. Kai shifted slightly, not away, but closer, just enough that the distance between them wasn't something to think about anymore. It's strange, he admitted. Adrian's voice remained low. What is? Kai hesitated. This. He gestured lightly between them. It doesn't feel forced anymore. Adrian didn't look surprised. It isn't. Kai nodded slowly. Yeah. A pause. I think that's what makes it harder. Adrian tilted his head slightly. Harder? Kai looked at him. Because now I don't have anything to blame it on. Silence. Then, you don't need to blame anything, Adrian said. Kai let out a quiet breath. I know. But knowing didn't make it easier. Kai's voice dropped slightly. If this keeps going. He trailed off again. Adrian didn't interrupt. I'm not going to want to leave. The words came out softer than expected, but they were real. Adrian's response was immediate. Then don't. Kai blinked. You make it sound simple. It is. Kai shook his head slightly. It's not. A pause. Then Adrian stepped closer again. Now there was no space at all. You're still here, he said. Kai's breath slowed. I am. And you haven't left. No. Then you already chose. Kai went quiet, because that was true, and he hadn't even realized when it happened. I didn't mean to, Kai admitted. Adrian's voice softened. You don't have to mean to. Kai let out a small breath. You really believe that? Yes. Kai looked at him for a long moment. Then, I think I'm starting to. The words felt unfamiliar, but not wrong. Just new. Adrian didn't respond. He didn't need to, because the way he stayed, the way he didn't move away, that said enough. Kai's gaze dropped briefly, then lifted again. Stay tonight. The words came out quieter this time, more certain. Adrian didn't hesitate. I will. Kai nodded slowly. Okay. A small silence followed. Then Kai turned slightly, moving toward the bed, but not fully stepping away, like he expected Adrian to follow. And he did. Not rushed, not uncertain. Just steady. Kai sat down slowly, letting out a quiet breath as the weight of the day finally caught up with him. This still feels unreal, he murmured. Adrian stood nearby. It will pass. Kai glanced up at him. The feeling? Yes. Kai shook his head slightly. I don't think I wanted to. Adrian's gaze softened just slightly. Then it won't. Kai smiled faintly. You really say things like that so easily. They're not easy. Kai exhaled slowly. I believe you. That was new too. Believing him without questioning, without doubting. Kai shifted slightly on the bed, his posture relaxing. You're not leaving, right? Adrian's answer came instantly. No. Kai nodded once. Good. The word slipped out again. Natural now. And Adrian didn't question it this time. He just stayed. Kai leaned back slightly, his eyes half closing for a moment. I think I'm tired. You should rest. Kai hummed softly. Stay. I said I would. Kai smiled faintly, not opening his eyes fully. I know. The room fell into a quiet stillness. Soft light, slow breathing. No tension, no distance, just presence. And for the first time, Kai didn't feel like he was waiting for something to go wrong. He didn't feel like he needed to prepare to leave. He just stayed. And Adrian stayed too. Not because of the contract, not because of obligation, but because he wanted to. And that was the difference now. Not survival, not arrangement, not roles, just two people. Choosing not to walk away. Kai didn't realize when he fell asleep. One moment he was aware of the soft weight of the room, the quiet breathing, the steady presence beside him. And the next, everything faded into something deeper, calmer. It wasn't restless. It wasn't heavy. It was peaceful. And that was new. The night passed quietly. The city outside slowly dimming as the hours slipped by. Inside the room, nothing moved except a faint rise and fall of two steady breaths. Adrian hadn't left. He stayed exactly where he said he would. Not out of habit, not out of duty, just because he wanted to. At some point, he shifted slightly, not enough to wake Kai, just enough to settle more comfortably. His gaze rested on Kai for a moment, calm, observant, like he was making sure everything was exactly as it should be. Safe. Then even that quiet watchfulness softened, fading into stillness. Morning came slowly. Soft light filtered through the curtains, casting a faint glow across the room. It moved gently, inching its way across the floor, up the bed, touching everything without urgency. Kai stirred slightly, not fully awake, just aware enough to feel something different. Warmth, close, steady. His brows pulled together faintly before his eyes opened slowly. For a moment, he didn't move, didn't breathe too deeply, didn't even think. He just noticed Adrian, still there, closer than he expected, not distant, not standing somewhere across the room, like usual, right beside him. Kai blinked once, his mind catching up gradually. You stayed, he murmured, his voice still rough with sleep. Adrian's eyes were already open. I said I would. Kai let out a soft breath, something close to a quiet laugh. You really don't break your word. No. Kai shifted slightly, pushing himself up just enough to look at him properly. How long have you been awake? Long enough. Kai frowned faintly. That doesn't answer the question. Adrian's lips curved just slightly. It doesn't need to. Kai shook his head, but there was no irritation in it. You're annoying, and you're still here. Kai paused. Then, yeah, that word again. But now it felt softer, more certain. Kai leaned back slightly, running a hand through his hair. This feels different, he admitted. Adrian didn't ask what he meant. He already knew. It is... Kai glanced at him. You don't even question it anymore. No. Kai let out a quiet breath. I think I'm starting not to either. A small silence followed. Not awkward, not heavy, just calm. Kai shifted again, stretching slightly, his movements slower than usual, like he wasn't in a hurry to get up. We're supposed to have an event today, right? He asked. Yes. Kai groaned softly. I don't want to go. Then don't. Kai blinked. That's not how this works. It can be. Kai turned his head to look at him. You're serious? Yes. Kai stared at him for a second. You cancel it? If you want. Kai let out a small breath, something almost like disbelief. You would have never said that before. No. Kai shook his head slightly. You really changed. Adrian didn't deny it. Yes. Kai watched him for a moment longer. Then, we'll go, he said. Adrian's brows shifted slightly. You don't have to. I know. Kai exhaled slowly. But I want to. A pause. With you? That last part came quieter. But Adrian heard it, and something in his gaze softened again. Then we'll go, Adrian said. Kai nodded once. Okay. Another quiet moment passed between them. Then Kai added, but later, Adrian tilted his head slightly. Later, Kai shifted back into the bed slightly, pulling the blanket just a little closer. Just give me a few more minutes. Adrian watched him. To wake up, he asked. Kai shook his head faintly, his eyes already half closing again. To stay. Silence. Soft. Steady. Adrian didn't argue, didn't move, didn't rush. He just stayed exactly where he was, because that was what Kai asked for. And now, that was what mattered. The room remained quiet, the morning light growing a little brighter, but not enough to break the calm. Kai's breathing slowed again, not fully asleep this time, just relaxed. And Adrian stayed beside him, just as steady as before, not because of the contract, not because of obligation, but because he chose to, again and again and again. Kai didn't rush to get up, even after the light grew brighter, even after the world outside had clearly started moving again. He stayed where he was, half awake, half aware, grounded by the quiet presence beside him. It felt safe, too safe, and that thought alone made something tighten slightly in his chest. We really should get up, Kai murmured, though he didn't move. Adrian didn't either. Yes. Kai waited. Nothing happened. He let out a small breath, almost amused. You're not helping. You didn't ask me to. Kai opened his eyes slightly, turning his head just enough to look at him. Are you always this literal? Yes. Kai huffed softly. Of course you are. A small silence followed. Then Kai finally pushed himself up slowly, sitting at the edge of the bed. He stretched lightly, his body still carrying the softness of sleep, his mind slower than usual. But the moment he stood, reality settled again. The contract, the events, the world outside this room. Kai exhaled slowly. Okay, back to real life. Adrian stood as well, his movements calm, controlled as always. It's still real. Kai glanced at him. You know what I mean? Yes. Kai ran a hand through his hair again, shaking off the last bit of sleep. We should get ready. Adrian nodded once. I'll have everything prepared. Kai started toward the door, then paused. Adrian. He turned slightly. Adrian looked at him. Yes. Kai hesitated. Then, last night, this morning. He didn't finish. He didn't need to. Adrian understood. It doesn't change anything we said, Adrian replied. Kai's chest tightened slightly. Good. A pause. I didn't want it to. Adrian's gaze held his for a moment longer. Neither did I. Kai nodded once, then left the room. The house felt different in the morning. Brighter, more structured. Staff moving quietly, preparing things, setting the tone for the day. Kai walked through it more naturally now. Less hesitant, less out of place. That alone felt strange. But also, right. By the time he was ready, dressed in something that fit perfectly, like everything else in his house, he barely recognized a version of himself in the mirror anymore. Not because he had changed completely, but because he wasn't trying to hide anymore. You're staring. Kai looked up. Adrian stood in the doorway, already dressed, already composed. Kai exhaled softly. Just thinking. Adrian stepped inside. About? Kai glanced at him. How different everything feels. Adrian didn't respond immediately. Then, different isn't always bad. Kai nodded slowly. Yeah. A pause. I'm starting to see that. Adrian stepped closer. Not too close. Just enough. You look fine, he said. Kai raised a brow slightly. That's it. Yes. Kai let out a quiet laugh. You're terrible at compliments. I don't give unnecessary ones. Kai shook his head. Unbelievable, but there was no real complaint in it. Just familiarity. They walked out together. This time, it didn't feel like following. It felt like walking side by side. The car ride was quiet, but not tense. Kai looked out the window again, watching the city pass by. But this time, his mind wasn't trying to escape. It was just present. Are you thinking again? Adrian asked. Kai smiled faintly. A little. Adrian didn't tell him to stop this time. About what? Kai hesitated. Then, about how this is going to look. Adrian's gaze didn't shift. It will look the same as always. Kai glanced at him. Will it? A pause. Adrian didn't answer immediately. No, he said finally. Kai's lips curved slightly. At least you're honest. Yes. Kai looked back out the window. People are going to notice. They might. Kai exhaled slowly. And if they do? Adrian's voice remained steady. Then we handle it. Kai turned his head slightly. Just like that? Yes. Kai studied him. You're not worried? No. Kai let out a small breath. You really don't get shaken easily. No. Kai smiled faintly. I'm glad one of us doesn't. The car slowed, then stopped. Kai looked outside. The event, crowded, bright, full of people. He exhaled slowly. Okay. Adrian stepped out first, then turned slightly, not reaching, not pulling, just waiting. Kai stepped out too, and this time he didn't hesitate, didn't fall behind, didn't overthink. He stepped forward and stood beside Adrian, naturally, like it was where he belonged. And Adrian noticed. Of course he did. Their eyes met briefly. No words, just understanding. Then they walked in, together. The room shifted. People noticed. They always did. But this time, something was different. Not obvious, not loud, but there. Subtle, real. The way they stood, the way they moved, the way they didn't create distance. It wasn't just appearance anymore. And people could feel that. Adrian. A familiar voice. Kai glanced over. Daniel. Again. His eyes immediately landed on Kai. And this time, they lingered longer. You're back, Daniel said with a small smile. Kai tilted his head slightly. I was here before. Daniel chuckled softly. I meant your back. Looking like that. Kai raised a brow. Like what? Daniel's gaze sharpened slightly. Like you belong. Silence. Then, Adrian stepped slightly closer. Not obvious, but clear. Kai felt it. And this time, he didn't question it. Didn't pull away. He just stayed. I do, Kai said calmly. Daniel's smile didn't fade, but something in his eyes shifted. Interesting. Adrian's voice cut in. It's not up for discussion. Daniel lifted his hand slightly. Relax. I'm not questioning it. But his gaze lingered again. And this time, Kai didn't feel uncertain. Didn't feel out of place. He just held it. Steady. Unshaken. Because now, he knew where he stood. Not just beside Adrian, but with him. And that made all the difference. Daniel didn't leave. That was the problem. Even after the brief exchange, even after Adrian's quiet but clear warning, he stayed close enough to circle back, close enough to make his presence known, without being obvious about it. Kai noticed. Of course he did. You're watching him, Kai murmured under his breath. Adrian didn't look at him. I'm aware of him. Kai let out a small breath. Same thing. A pause. No, Adrian said. It's not. Kai glanced at him briefly. What's the difference? Adrian's voice stayed calm. Watching means interest. Being aware means caution. Kai raised a brow slightly. So which one is this? Adrian's answer came without hesitation. Caution. Kai didn't press further. But something about that answer stayed with him. Because Adrian didn't say things without reason. And if he was being cautious, then something wasn't right. The event continued. People came and went. Conversations overlapping. Laughter filling the room in controlled bursts. Kai stayed beside Adrian, moving naturally now, responding when needed, quiet when not. But his attention, it kept shifting. Back to Daniel. Because Daniel hadn't stopped looking. Not directly. Not openly. But enough. And Kai felt it. He's still watching, Kai said quietly. I know, Adrian replied. Kai exhaled slowly. This is getting uncomfortable. A pause. Then, stay close, Adrian said. Kai blinked. I already am. Closer. Kai hesitated. Just for a second. Then he stepped slightly nearer. Not forced. Not obvious. But enough that the distance between them disappeared completely. Adrian didn't move away. Didn't react outwardly. But something in his posture shifted. More grounded. More certain. And Kai felt it. That quiet reassurance. That steady presence. You really don't like this, Kai murmured. No. Kai tilted his head slightly. Why? Adrian's gaze flicked briefly toward Daniel, then back. Because he doesn't respect boundaries. Kai frowned. He's just talking. No, Adrian said calmly. He's testing. Kai went quiet, because that made more sense. More than he wanted it to. Testing what? Kai asked. Adrian's voice lowered slightly. You. Kai blinked. Me? Yes. A pause. And you don't like that? No. Kai let out a small breath. You're being protective again. Adrian didn't deny it. Yes. Kai looked at him for a moment longer. Then, okay. The word came out softer than expected. But it wasn't resistance. It was acceptance. And Adrian noticed. Of course he did. The tension didn't break. If anything, it built, because moments later, Daniel returned. Like he had been waiting for the right time. Adrian, he greeted again, but his eyes went straight to Kai. You seem comfortable now. Kai held his gaze. I am. Daniel smiled faintly. That didn't take long. Kai didn't react. Didn't rise to it. But Adrian did. Say what you came to say, Adrian said calmly. Daniel's smile didn't fade. I already am. His attention shifted back to Kai. You're adapting quickly. Kai tilted his head slightly. To what? Daniel stepped a fraction closer. This world. This lifestyle. Him. The last word lingered. Kai didn't move. Didn't step back. Maybe I'm just good at learning. Daniel's gaze sharpened. Or maybe you're more invested than you expected. Silence. That hit too close. Kai felt it. Adrian felt it. And Daniel knew it. Adrian's voice cut in. That's enough. Daniel didn't look away from Kai. Is it? Adrian stepped forward slightly. Subtle, but firm. Yes. A pause. Then Daniel leaned back slightly, lifting his hands in mock surrender. Relax, he said. I'm just curious. His eyes flicked between them. It's interesting, that's all. Kai held his gaze. What is? Daniel's smile returned. The way this doesn't feel like a contract anymore. Silence. Heavy. Immediate. Kai's chest tightened. Adrian didn't move, but his presence shifted. Sharper now. Colder. Controlled. That's not your concern, Adrian said. Daniel's expression didn't change. Maybe not. But he didn't deny it. And that was enough. Because now the line had been crossed. The unspoken thing was spoken. And people noticed. Not everyone. But enough. Kai felt it immediately. The shift in the room. The subtle glances. The quiet attention. He knows. Kai said under his breath. Yes, Adrian replied. Kai swallowed. And others might too. A pause. They might. Kai exhaled slowly. This is bad. Yes. But Adrian didn't sound worried. He sounded certain. Kai glanced at him. You're not reacting. I am. Doesn't look like it. Adrian's gaze stayed forward. Because I don't need to. Kai frowned slightly. Why not? Adrian's voice lowered. Because it doesn't change anything. Kai's breath caught slightly. You're serious? Yes. Kai stared at him for a moment. Then, okay. Again, that word. But now meant something more. Trust. Not blind. Not forced. But chosen. The event didn't last much longer after that. But the tension, it stayed. Quiet. Unspoken. Heavy. And by the time they left, Kai knew this wasn't just internal anymore. It wasn't just between them. Now it was out there. And that meant one thing. Everything was about to get harder. The ride back was quieter than usual. Not tense. Not uncomfortable. Just heavier. Kai leaned back against the seat, staring out the window. But his mind wasn't on the city this time. It kept circling back to the same moment. The way Daniel said it. The way people looked after. It's already spreading, Kai said quietly. Adrian didn't look at him. Yes. Kai frowned. You're not even going to deny it? No. Kai turned his head. You're just accepting it? Adrian's voice stayed calm. I'm acknowledging it. Kai let out a breath. There's a difference? Yes. Kai waited, but Adrian didn't explain further. And somehow that was enough, because Adrian wasn't the type to panic, which meant if he was calm, there was a reason this would get bad. Kai added, it might. Kai blinked. You really don't sugarcoat anything. No. Kai let out a small, tired breath. I'm trying to figure out if that's comforting or not. It's honest. Kai shook his head slightly. You always fall back on that. Yes. The car slowed, then stopped. The mansion gates opened slowly, letting them in. Kai watched it happen, his thoughts still running. If this becomes public, he said, quieter now, the contract. Adrian finally looked at him. It doesn't change. Kai held his gaze. Even if people start questioning it? Yes. Even if it affects your reputation? Yes. Kai's chest tightened. Why? Adrian didn't hesitate. Because I've already decided. Kai swallowed. Decided what? Adrian's voice dropped slightly. That you're worth it. Silence. That hit deeper than anything else that night. Kai looked away first, his grip tightening slightly on his sleeve. You don't even think about consequences, do you? I do. Then why? Because this matters more. Kai exhaled slowly. You're really serious. Yes. The car stopped fully. Neither of them moved immediately. Then Kai pushed the door open and stepped out. The night air felt cooler than before. Sharper. More real. He walked inside without saying anything, his steps slower than usual. Adrian followed. The doors closed behind them. Silence returned. But it wasn't the same silence as before. Now it carried weight. Kai stopped in the middle of the living area, turning slightly. We need to talk about this properly. Adrian nodded once. We are. Kai shook his head. No, not like before. Not we'll handle it or it's fine. A pause. This is different now. Adrian stepped closer. I know. Kai frowned slightly. Do you? Yes. Kai held his gaze. Then say it. A small silence. Then, this is no longer just between us, Adrian said. Kai nodded slowly. Exactly. Another pause. Then Kai added, and that means things can go wrong. Yes. Badly. Yes. Kai let out a breath. And you're still not stepping back. No. Kai shook his head. Why? Adrian's answer came without hesitation. Because I won't lose this before it even starts. Kai's breath caught. Starts. Adrian didn't look away. Yes. Kai stared at him. You're really calling this something now. I already did. Kai swallowed. And if I'm not ready for that. A pause. Then Adrian's voice softened slightly. Then I wait. Kai blinked. You wait? Yes. Kai let out a small breath. You're serious? Yes. Kai ran a hand through his hair. You're making this hard. I know. But you're not stopping. No. Kai let out a quiet laugh, but it didn't hold much humor. You're impossible. And you're still here. Kai paused, then nodded slightly. Yeah. Silence settled again. But this time it wasn't calm. It was building. Kai's voice dropped. What if I leave? The question hung there. Heavy. Real. Adrian didn't answer immediately. When he did, then I let you. Kai blinked. Just like that? Yes. Kai frowned. That doesn't sound like you. Adrian's gaze didn't shift. I won't force you to stay. Kai stared at him. But you don't want to go. No. Kai's chest tightened. You're really putting that choice on me. Yes. Kai looked away. Because that was the hardest part. Not pressure. Not control. Choice. His choice. And that made everything real. This is too much. Kai said quietly. Adrian stepped closer. Not forcing. Not closing him in. Just. There. I know. Kai shook his head. I didn't sign up for this. No. I signed up for something simple. It was Kai let out a breath. And now it's not. No. Silence. Then Kai looked back at him. And you're okay with that? Yes. Kai stared at him for a long moment. Then, I'm not. That shifted everything. The room felt tighter, heavier. Adrian didn't react immediately. What do you mean? He asked. Kai exhaled slowly. I mean, I didn't expect this. I didn't expect to feel like this. I didn't expect you to. He stopped, frustration flickering through his expression. To matter this much. Silence. Adrian didn't interrupt. Kai continued, quieter now, and I don't know what to do with that. A pause. So maybe I need space. That was it. The break. The shift. The moment things stopped being steady. Adrian's gaze stayed on him. How much space? He asked. Kai swallowed. I don't know. Another pause. Then, but I need it. Silence filled the room. Heavy, unavoidable. And this time, Adrian didn't step closer. Didn't close the distance. He stayed where he was. Okay, he said. Kai blinked. Okay? Yes. Kai stared at him. You're just going to accept that? Yes. Kai's chest tightened again. You're not even going to argue? No. Silence. Kai didn't expect that. Didn't prepare for it. Because somehow that hurt more. You're really letting me go, he said quietly. Adrian's voice dropped. I'm giving you space. Kai looked away. Same thing. No. Kai didn't respond. Because right now it felt the same. And that was enough to make everything feel uncertain again. Kai didn't leave that night. Not immediately. That was the strange part. He asked for space. But his feet didn't move. He stood there, a few steps away from Adrian, the distance between them suddenly feeling much larger than it actually was. I said I need space, Kai muttered, almost to himself. Adrian didn't step closer. I heard you. Kai swallowed. Then why does it feel like I'm the one stuck? Adrian's voice stayed steady. Because you haven't decided what space means yet. Kai let out a quiet breath. You always make things sound simple. They are simple, Adrian replied. Kai shook his head. No, they're not. Silence settled again. Heavier this time. Not calm. Not soft. Just uncertain. Kai turned slightly, running a hand through his hair. If I stay here, I won't think clearly. Adrian didn't argue. Then go. That landed. Kai froze for a second. You really don't stop me? No. Kai let out a breath. You really trust me that much? Adrian's answer came low. It's not about trust. Kai's chest tightened. He remembered that. He always remembered that. Yeah, he said quietly. I know. Another pause. Then Kai walked. Not fast. Not rushed. Just moving toward the door. Each step felt heavier than it should. Like something was pulling him back. But he kept going. Because if he didn't, he wouldn't leave at all. His hand reached the door. Paused. For just a second. Adrian. A quiet call. Behind him. Yes. Kai didn't turn around immediately. If I don't come back tonight. The words felt wrong the moment they left his mouth. Adrian didn't hesitate. I'll still be here. Kai's throat tightened slightly. You're not even going to ask where I'm going? No. Or when I'll be back? No. Kai let out a small breath. You're really letting me do this? Yes. That calm. That certainty. It made everything harder. Because Adrian wasn't pushing. Wasn't stopping him. Wasn't even questioning him. He was just staying. You make this difficult, Kai whispered. I know. Kai nodded faintly. Then he opened the door and stepped out. The hallway felt colder, quieter, too quiet. His footsteps echoed again, just like before, like the beginning. But this time, he wasn't the same. He reached the front door, stepped outside, and the night air hit him. Cool, sharp, real. Kai exhaled slowly, his chest rising and falling. Kai exhaled slowly, his chest rising and falling as he tried to steady himself. But nothing about this felt steady anymore. Not his breathing, not his thoughts. Not the way Adrian was still standing so close, like he had no intention of creating distance again. That answers a lot, Kai murmured, his voice quieter now but clearer. Adrian's gaze didn't leave him. Yes. Kai swallowed slightly, his fingers still curled faintly against Adrian's sleeve, like he hadn't fully let go yet. So what now? He asked. Adrian didn't hesitate. Now we stop pretending. Kai blinked once. We already did. No, Adrian said calmly. We stopped pretending in front of each other. A pause. Now we stop pretending to ourselves. Kai went quiet, because that was harder. Admitting it out loud was one thing. Living with it was another. Kai looked down briefly, then back up again. And if I mess this up? Adrian's answer came without hesitation. You won't. Kai shook his head faintly. You don't know that. I do. How? Adrian stepped just a fraction closer. Because you came back. Kai's breath caught slightly. That's your reason? Yes. Kai let out a quiet breath. Almost a laugh. That's not very logical. I'm not being logical. Kai stared at him for a moment longer. Then, you really changed. Adrian didn't deny it. Yes. Kai's chest tightened again, but this time it didn't feel overwhelming. It felt grounding. For me, Kai said softly. Yes. That word again. Simple. Heavy. Certain. Kai exhaled slowly. You really don't hesitate. No. Kai shook his head slightly. I wish I could do that. You can. Kai let out a small breath. I'm trying. Adrian didn't push. Didn't correct him. He just stayed. And somehow, that helped more than anything else. Kai's gaze softened slightly. I thought this would be temporary, he admitted. Adrian listened. I thought I'd come here, fix everything, and leave like it never mattered. A pause. But it matters. Adrian's voice lowered. I know. Kai swallowed. And that's what makes it hard. Why? Kai looked at him. Because if it matters, then I can lose it. Silence. That was the truth. The real fear. Adrian didn't dismiss it. Didn't brush it aside. Instead, you won't lose it, he said. Kai shook his head immediately. You can't promise that. I can. Kai frowned. How? Adrian's gaze didn't waver. Because I'm not going anywhere. Kai's breath slowed. You keep saying that. Yes. Kai looked away briefly. And I want to believe you. Then do. Kai let out a quiet breath. You make that sound easy. It is. Kai huffed softly. You're impossible. And you're still here. Kai paused, then nodded slightly. Yeah. A small silence followed. Then Kai stepped closer again, not hesitating this time, not overthinking, just moving. I think I'm done questioning this, he said quietly. Adrian's voice remained steady. Good. Kai's lips curved faintly. You always say that. And you're always still here. Kai let out a soft breath. Yeah. Another pause. Then, this doesn't feel like something temporary anymore, Kai said. Adrian didn't hesitate. It isn't. Kai held his gaze. You're really sure? Yes. Kai exhaled slowly. Then I guess I should stop treating it like it is. Adrian stepped closer again. Now there was no space left between them. You should. Kai's breath hitched slightly. But he didn't move away. Didn't pull back. Didn't stop it. Because at this point, there was nothing left to stop. Adrian, he said quietly. Yes. Kai hesitated. Then, if this keeps going, a pause. I'm not going to be able to leave. Adrian's answer came instantly. Then don't. Kai closed his eyes briefly. You always come back to that. Yes. Kai opened his eyes again. And I think I'm finally starting to understand why. A small silence settled. Then Kai added, because you're not leaving either. Adrian didn't deny it. No. Kai nodded slowly. Okay. That word again. A pause. I'm staying. Adrian's gaze didn't shift. Good. Kai almost smiled. You really like that word. Yes. Kai shook his head faintly. Of course you do. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full, settled, grounded, like something had finally clicked into place. But it didn't last, because reality didn't wait. A sharp sound cut through the quiet. Kai's phone. He blinked, the moment breaking slightly as he pulled his hand back, reaching into his pocket. The screen lit up. Unknown number. Kai frowned. I don't recognize this. Adrian's expression didn't change. Answer it. Kai hesitated for a second. Then he did. Hello? There was no greeting on the other end. Just a voice. Low. Measured. I was wondering how long it would take. Kai's brows pulled together. Who is this? A soft chuckle. You don't recognize me already? Kai's chest tightened slightly. Because he did. Daniel, what do you want? Kai asked, his tone sharpening. I just thought I'd help you, Daniel said lightly. Kai's grip on the phone tightened. Help me with what? A pause. Then, with the truth. Kai's jaw tightened. What truth? Daniel's voice dropped slightly. That your little arrangement isn't as hidden as you think. Silence. Kai felt it immediately. That shift. That pressure. I don't know what you're talking about, Kai said. Adrian was already watching him now. Careful. Alert. Daniel laughed softly. You don't have to pretend with me. Kai didn't respond. People are starting to notice, Daniel continued. The way you stand. The way he looks at you. The way you came back tonight. Kai's chest tightened. So what? A pause. Then Daniel's voice sharpened just slightly. So what happens when they find out it was all a contract? Silence. Heavy. Immediate. Kai's breath slowed. You don't know anything. I know enough, Daniel replied. Another pause. And I'm curious how far you're willing to go before it all falls apart. Kai's jaw clenched. Why are you doing this? Daniel didn't hesitate. Because I don't like things that don't make sense. A beat, and you don't make sense. Kai exhaled slowly. This doesn't concern you. Everything in this circle concerns me, Daniel said calmly. Especially when it involves Adrian. Kai's eyes flicked toward Adrian briefly. Then talk to him, Kai said. I will, Daniel replied. A pause. But I wanted to hear from you first. Kai went quiet. Because now it wasn't just tension. It wasn't just suspicion. It was exposure. And that changed everything. We're done here, Kai said finally. Daniel's voice softened slightly. No, you're just getting started. The call ended. Silence filled the room again. But this time it wasn't calm. It wasn't steady. It was heavy. Kai lowered the phone slowly. He knows, he said quietly. Adrian didn't react immediately. How much? Kai shook his head. Enough. A pause. And he's not going to let it go. Adrian's expression hardened slightly. I know. Kai looked at him. This is what I meant. His voice dropped. This is what happens. Adrian stepped closer. Not rushed. Not aggressive. Just certain. And this is where we decide what matters. Kai frowned. You're still calm. Yes. Why? Adrian's gaze held his. Because this doesn't change anything. Kai stared at him. It changes everything. No, Adrian said. It reveals it. Kai's breath caught slightly. You really think we can just ignore this? No. Kai blinked. Then what? Adrian's voice lowered. We handle it. Kai let out a breath. How? A pause. Then together, that word again. Kai's chest tightened. You're really not stepping back. No. Kai shook his head slightly. Even now. No. Silence. Kai looked down at his phone again. Then back up. He's going to push this. Yes. He might expose it. Yes. Kai exhaled slowly. And you're still choosing this. Adrian didn't hesitate. Yes. Kai stared at him for a long moment. Then, okay. Another pause. Then I'm choosing it too. That was it. The decision. Clear. Final. No hesitation left. Adrian's gaze softened just slightly. Good. Kai let out a quiet breath. You always say that. And you always mean it. Kai almost smiled. Yeah. But this time, there was no calm after it. Because now, they weren't just dealing with themselves anymore. They were dealing with the world. And the world was starting to notice. The silence didn't settle this time. It stayed tense. Kai stood there, the phone still in his hand, like the call hadn't fully ended. Even though the screen had gone dark, the words lingered. What happens when they find out it was all a contract? His chest tightened. He's going to do something. Kai said quietly. Adrian didn't deny it. Yes. Kai looked up at him. And you're still not worried. I am, Adrian said. I'm just not reacting the way you expect. Kai frowned slightly. What does that mean? Adrian stepped closer. It means I already know what he's trying to do. Kai's grip on the phone tightened. Then say it. A pause. Then, he's trying to push you, Adrian said, to see if you'll break first. Kai blinked. Me? Yes. Kai let out a breath. Why me? Adrian's voice lowered. Because you're the variable. Kai went quiet. Because that made sense. Too much sense. If I panic, if I slip up. Kai murmured. He wins. Adrian finished. Silence. Kai ran a hand through his hair. This is exactly what I didn't want. I know. This is why I said I needed space. And you took it. Kai exhaled slowly. And it didn't change anything. No. Kai looked at him again. So what do we do? Adrian didn't hesitate. We don't react. Kai blinked. What? We don't give him anything, Adrian continued. No panic. No mistakes. No confirmation. Kai frowned. You think that's enough? For now. Kai shook his head slightly. He's not going to stop. No. Then this isn't over. Adrian's gaze didn't shift. No. That made Kai's chest tighten again. Because now it was real. Not just feelings. Not just confusion. But something external. Something that could break everything. This could ruin you, Kai said quietly. Adrian's answer came immediately. It won't. Kai stared at him. You don't know that. I do. How? Adrian stepped closer again. Now there was no distance left. Because I'm not letting it. Kai's breath caught slightly. You make it sound like you can control everything. I can't. Then why? But I can control what I choose, Adrian said. Kai went quiet. Because that was the difference. And you're choosing this. Kai said, yes. Even now. Yes. Kai let out a slow breath. You really don't hesitate. No. Kai shook his head slightly. I wish I could be like that. You are. Kai blinked. What? You came back? Adrian said. Silence. Kai swallowed. That's not the same. It is. Kai didn't respond, because part of him knew it was true. I'm still scared, Kai admitted. Adrian didn't dismiss it. I know. This is bigger than just us now. Yes. And I don't know if I can handle that. Adrian's voice softened slightly. You won't handle it alone. Kai's chest tightened. You keep saying that. Yes. Kai looked away briefly. And I'm starting to rely on it. That's not a problem. Kai huffed softly. It feels like one. A pause. Then, it's not, Adrian said. Kai exhaled slowly. You really don't leave room for doubt. No. Kai almost smiled. Yeah. A small silence followed. Then Kai straightened slightly. Okay. Adrian watched him. Okay, he repeated. Kai nodded once. If he's trying to push me, then I won't give him anything. Adrian's gaze sharpened slightly. Good. Kai let out a breath. You like that word too much. And you're finally using it properly. Kai shook his head faintly. Unbelievable. But his tone had steadied now. The fear wasn't gone. But it wasn't controlling him anymore. So we act normal, Kai said. Yes. No slipping. No. No reacting. No. Kai nodded slowly. And if he pushes harder? Adrian's voice dropped slightly. Then we end it. Kai blinked. And what? Adrian's gaze held his. The contract. Silence. Heavy. Immediate. Kai's breath caught. You're serious. Yes. You'd really do that? Yes. Kai stared at him. That's everything. I know. Your reputation, your business, I know. Kai swallowed. And you'd still risk it. Adrian didn't hesitate. Yes. That hit harder than anything else. Because this wasn't just words anymore. It was a decision. A real one. Why? Kai asked quietly. Adrian stepped closer again. Because I'm not choosing something temporary over something real. Kai's chest tightened. You really see this as real? Yes. Kai let out a slow breath. Then I guess I have to too. A pause. Then Kai added, fully. Adrian's gaze softened just slightly. Good. Kai shook his head faintly. You really don't change. No. Kai almost smiled. I'm glad. Silence settled again. But this time, it wasn't heavy. It wasn't uncertain. It was steady, even with everything waiting outside, even with the pressure building, even with Daniel watching. They stood there grounded because now they had made the same choice. Not just to stay, but to face whatever came next. Together. The next day came too fast. Kai barely slept, not because he was restless, but because his mind wouldn't stop replaying everything. Daniel's voice, the threat behind his words, the way Adrian didn't hesitate. Then we end it. Kai sat at the edge of the bed, staring at nothing for a long moment before finally exhaling. We're really doing this, he muttered. And for the first time, it wasn't just about feelings anymore. It was about consequences. Real ones. The door opened softly behind him. Kai didn't turn. You're awake, he said. Yes. Adrian's voice was calm, as always. Kai let out a breath. Of course you are. A pause. Then Adrian stepped closer. Did you sleep? I'm not trying to. Kai huffed softly. I noticed. A pause. Then Kai stood, slowly, deliberately. Okay. Adrian watched him. Okay, he repeated. Kai nodded. We don't react. Yes. We don't slip. Yes. And we don't let him control this. Yes. Kai took a breath. Together. Adrian's gaze sharpened slightly. Yes. That word again. Steady. Certain. Kai nodded once more, then turned slightly toward the mirror. For a moment, he didn't recognize the person looking back. Not because he had changed completely, but because he wasn't uncertain anymore. He wasn't trying to hide. He wasn't preparing to leave. He was staying. This is going to be a mess. Kai muttered. Yes. Kai almost smiled. At least you're honest. Yes. The preparation didn't take long. It never did. Everything was already set. Clothes chosen. Car ready. Timing precise. But the feeling, that was different. The car ride was quieter than usual. Not tense. Just focused. Kai didn't look out the window this time. He didn't need distraction. He needed clarity. If he says something, Kai began. He will. Adrian said. Kai nodded. Then we don't react. Yes. Even if it's bad. Yes. Kai exhaled slowly. Okay. The car slowed. Then stopped. Kai looked ahead. The venue was larger than the last. Brighter. More crowded. More visible. Which meant more dangerous. This is definitely not subtle, Kai muttered. No. Kai let out a breath. Great. Adrian stepped out first. Then turned slightly. Not reaching. Not pulling. Just waiting. Kai stepped out. And this time, he didn't hesitate. Didn't second guess. He stepped forward and stood beside Adrian. Not behind. Not slightly distant. Beside him. And Adrian noticed. Of course he did. Their eyes met briefly. Then they walked in. Together. The room shifted immediately. More people. More attention. More eyes. Kai felt it. But this time he didn't shrink. Didn't pull back. Didn't overthink. He stayed steady. Because now he knew where he stood. He's here. Kai said under his breath. I know, Adrian replied. Kai's eyes moved across the room. And there, Daniel, watching, waiting, and smiling. Of course he is, Kai muttered. Adrian's posture didn't change. But something in the air did. Sharper now. More controlled. Daniel didn't wait long. He moved through the crowd like he belonged there. Because he did. And stopped right in front of them. Adrian, he greeted. Then his gaze shifted. Kai. Kai held his gaze. Daniel. A pause. Then Daniel smiled. I was wondering how tonight would go. Kai didn't respond. Didn't give him anything. Adrian stepped slightly closer. Subtle, but clear. What do you want? Adrian asked. Daniel tilted his head slightly. Straight to the point. Yes. Daniel's smile widened just slightly. I like that. A pause. Then, I just think it's interesting, Daniel continued. How quickly things change. Kai's jaw tightened slightly. But he didn't react. Didn't speak. Didn't give in. Daniel's gaze lingered on him. Don't you? Silence. Adrian's voice cut in. Say what you came to say. Daniel chuckled softly. Fine. A pause. Then, how long do you think this will last before people start asking questions? The room didn't go silent, but it felt like it did. Kai's chest tightened, but he stayed still. Didn't move. Didn't react. Adrian didn't either. Long enough, Adrian said calmly. Daniel's smile didn't fade. That's confident. A pause. But confidence doesn't stop rumors. Kai felt it. That pressure. That push. But he didn't break. Didn't respond. Didn't react. Just like they agreed. Daniel's eyes flicked between them. No reaction? He murmured. Adrian's voice stayed steady. No. Daniel let out a small breath. Interesting. A pause. Then, let's see how long that lasts. And just like that, the real game began. Daniel didn't move away this time. That was the difference. Before he would push, then step back, watch, wait. Now he stayed. Right there, like he was done playing quietly. Let's see how long that lasts, he repeated. His voice just low enough not to draw attention, but sharp enough to cut. Kai didn't react, didn't shift, didn't even blink, but inside his chest tightened. Because this wasn't just pressure anymore. This was escalation. Adrian didn't move either. What exactly are you trying to prove? Adrian asked calmly. Daniel tilted his head slightly. Prove? A faint smile. I'm not proving anything. A pause. I'm revealing. That word, it landed. Kai felt it immediately. Daniel's gaze shifted back to him. You've adapted well, he said, but not perfectly. Kai held his stare. Say what you want to say. Daniel's smile widened just slightly. I will. And then he stepped back, not retreating, positioning, and Kai understood. Too late. Daniel turned, raised his voice just enough. Funny thing about contracts, he said lightly, drawing the attention of a few nearby guests. They always look perfect, until you see what's underneath. The room didn't go silent, but it shifted, subtle, curious, watching. Kai's pulse spiked, but he didn't move, didn't react, because he knew this was a moment. Adrian stepped slightly forward, not defensive, not aggressive, just present. Be careful, Adrian said quietly. Daniel smiled. Always am. A pause. Then he added, especially when something doesn't add up. More eyes now, more attention, the air tightening. Kai could feel it, the edge of exposure, the line they couldn't cross. He's doing it, Kai murmured under his breath. I know, Adrian replied. Kai swallowed. If he says it, he won't. Kai blinked. How'd he know? Adrian's gaze didn't leave Daniel, because he doesn't have proof. Daniel chuckled softly, like he heard something he liked. Proof is overrated, he said, glancing back. People don't need facts. They just need doubt. That was worse. Kai felt it, the shift in the room, the subtle change in how people looked, not knowing, but wondering. And wondering was enough. This is bad, Kai said quietly. Yes, but Adrian still didn't look shaken. Then do something, Kai added. A pause. Then Adrian stepped forward. Not loud, not dramatic, but enough to shift attention back. If you're trying to create a scene, Adrian said calmly, you're failing. Daniel smiled. Am I? Adrian didn't hesitate. Yes. Silence. Then, because this is a performance, Adrian continued, and I don't entertain speculation. Daniel's eyes narrowed slightly. You're very confident. Yes. A pause. Even now. Yes. Kai felt it, that steadiness, that refusal to bend, and somehow it grounded him. Daniel looked between them again, longer this time, sharper. You really believe that, don't you? Adrian didn't answer. He didn't need to, because the way he stood, the way he didn't move, said everything. And for the first time, Daniel hesitated. Just slightly. Just enough. Interesting, he murmured. A pause. Then he stepped back. Enjoy the evening, he added casually. And just like that, he walked away. The tension didn't disappear, but it loosened. Just enough. Kai exhaled slowly. That was too close. Yes. Kai turned slightly toward Adrian. You were sure he wouldn't say it. I was. Kai frowned. Why? Adrian's voice lowered. Because he wanted reaction more than the truth. Kai blinked, and we didn't give him one. No. Kai let out a breath. So that's it? A pause. For now, Adrian said. Kai shook his head slightly. This isn't over. No. Silence settled again. But now it felt different. Not uncertain. Not fragile. Just tested. Kai looked at Adrian. We held. Yes. Kai nodded slowly. Yeah. A small pause. Then, I almost broke, Kai admitted quietly. Adrian's gaze softened just slightly. But you didn't. Kai let out a breath. Because you didn't. A pause. Then Adrian said, I told you, you wouldn't handle it alone. Kai looked at him for a long moment. Then, yeah, that word again. But now, it meant something stronger. Not just agreement, but trust. Real trust. Kai straightened slightly. He's not done. No. And neither are we. Adrian's gaze held his. No. Kai nodded once. Good. And this time, when he said it, he meant it completely. The night didn't end there. Even after Daniel walked away, the weight of what just happened lingered, quiet, invisible, but impossible to ignore. People went back to their conversations. Laughter returned. Glasses clinked again. But the shift stayed. Kai felt it, in the glances, in the pauses, in the way conversations slightly changed when he and Adrian passed by. They're thinking about it, Kai said under his breath. Yes, Adrian replied. Kai exhaled slowly. This is exactly what he wanted. Yes. Kai turned slightly toward him. Then we're not done. No. Silence. Then Kai added, I don't like waiting for the next move. You won't have to, Adrian said. Kai frowned. What does that mean? A pause. Then Adrian looked at him fully. It means we don't wait. Kai blinked. You want to act first? Yes. Kai's chest tightened slightly. How? Adrian's voice stayed calm. We end the uncertainty. Kai stared at him. You mean the contract? Adrian said. We end it. Silence. Heavy. Immediate. Kai's breath caught. Now. Yes. Kai shook his head slightly. That's too fast. It's already past the point where it matters, Adrian replied. Kai ran a hand through his hair. You're talking about exposing everything yourself. No, Adrian corrected. I'm talking about removing what he's using against us. Kai paused, because that made sense. If there's no contract, he has nothing, Adrian finished. Kai swallowed. And if people ask? Adrian's gaze didn't waver. Then we tell him what's true. Kai's heart started beating faster. And what is that? A pause. Then, that we chose this, Adrian said. Kai stared at him. Just like that. Yes. Kai let out a breath. You really don't make anything complicated. It already is, Adrian replied. I'm just not hiding it. Kai went quiet. Because now, this wasn't just about surviving the situation. This was about owning it. Fully. Publicly. This changes everything. Kai said. It already has. Kai looked away briefly. There's no going back after this. No. Another pause. Then Kai looked back at him. And you're still not hesitating. No. Kai exhaled slowly. You're really serious about this. Yes. Kai's chest tightened. About me? Yes. That word again. Steady. Certain. Unmoving. Kai swallowed. You're making this impossible to walk away from. I'm not trying to make it possible. Kai let out a quiet breath. You really are something else. A small silence followed. Then Kai straightened slightly. Okay. Adrian watched him. Okay, he repeated. Kai nodded once. We end it. A pause. No more contract. Adrian's gaze softened just slightly. Good. Kai huffed faintly. You always say that. And you always mean it. Kai shook his head. Yeah. Another pause. Then, but we do it properly, Kai added. Adrian tilted his head slightly. Explain. Kai took a breath. Not here. Not in the middle of an event. Not like a reaction. A pause. We do it on our terms. Adrian considered that. Then nodded once. Agreed. Kai exhaled slowly. Then we finish tonight. Yes. And tomorrow. A small pause. We end it. Adrian's voice stayed steady. Yes. Silence settled again. But this time it wasn't tense. It wasn't uncertain. It was decided. Kai glanced across the room briefly. Daniel was still there, watching, waiting. But now it felt different, because the power had shifted. He thinks he's pushing us. Kai said quietly. He is, Adrian replied. Kai's lips curved faintly. He just doesn't know where. Adrian didn't respond, but the look in his eyes said enough. Kai took a slow breath. Then, let's finish this. Adrian nodded once. And for the rest of the night, they didn't hide. They didn't pull away. They didn't create distance. They moved together, spoke together, stood together, not as something arranged, not as something temporary, but as something chosen. And people noticed. Of course they did. But this time, Kai didn't feel the pressure, didn't feel the need to explain. Because now, he wasn't pretending anymore. The next morning, everything changed. The next morning felt different. Not quieter, not calmer, but final. Kai stood by the window again, just like he always did. But this time, he wasn't thinking about leaving. He was thinking about staying. Fully. No conditions. No contracts. No exit. Behind him, Adrian was already dressed, already composed. But his attention wasn't on work. It was on Kai. You're thinking again, Adrian said. Kai smiled faintly. Not about leaving. A pause. Then he turned. About staying. Adrian didn't hesitate. Then stay. Kai shook his head slightly, walking closer. Not like before. A pause. Not because of the contract. Adrian's gaze didn't waver. There isn't one anymore. Kai exhaled slowly. Then I'll say it properly. A small silence. Then, I'm staying because I want you. No hesitation. No fear. Just truth. Adrian stepped closer. Again. Kai held his gaze. I'm staying because I choose you. That was it. The end of everything that was temporary. and the beginning of everything real. Adrian didn't hold back. He pulled Kai closer, firm and certain, like this wasn't something fragile anymore. You took long enough, Adrian murmured. Kai let out a quiet breath. You never gave me an easy way out. I wasn't trying to. Kai smiled slightly. I know. A pause. Then, what about everything else? Kai asked. Adrian's voice stayed steady. We handle it. Kai nodded slowly. Together? Yes. That word again. But now it wasn't a promise. It was a fact. Time skipped. The house didn't feel empty anymore. It hadn't for a long time. But now it felt alive. Soft laughter echoed through the hallway. Small footsteps. Unsteady. Curious. Kai turned his head slightly, smiling before he even saw him. Hey! Slowed down. Too late. A tiny figure ran straight into him, wrapping small arms around his leg. Kai laughed softly, bending down. You're getting faster. The child looked up, eyes bright. Papa. Kai's chest tightened, warm, full, real. Yeah, he said softly, brushing a hand to the child's hair. I'm here. Footsteps approached from behind. Steady. Familiar. Adrian. He's been looking for you, Adrian said. Kai glanced up. Really? The child nodded quickly. Kai smiled. I was right here. Adrian stepped closer, his presence just as grounding as it had always been, but softer now. Different. You're late? Kai added. Adrian raised a brow slightly. I was working. Kai huffed softly. You always say that. And you always complain. Kai smiled faintly. Someone has to. A small silence followed. Then the child tugged at Kai's sleeve again. Up. Kai laughed softly, lifting him easily. Demanding already. He gets that from you, Adrian said. Kai blinked. Excuse me? Adrian's lips curved just slightly. Stubborn. Doesn't listen. Says what he wants. Kai shook his head. That sounds like you. Does it? Kai smiled. Yes. The child giggled between them, completely unaware of the history that brought them here. And maybe that was the point. Epilogue what started as a contract. Ended as something no one could define. Not obligation. Not arrangement. Not temporary. But real. They didn't escape the world. They didn't avoid the consequences. They faced them. Together. And in the end, it wasn't the contract that held them. It wasn't the pressure. It wasn't the expectation. It was choice. Every day. Again. And again. And again. Kai never left. Adrian never let go. And somewhere between uncertainty and risk, they built something permanent. Something stronger than anything they planned. A life. A home. A family. What started as a contract became the one promise they never needed to sign.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to share and tell your friend about the channel. See you guys in the next video. Bye.